Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Thank you guys for being here for tonight's special council meeting. This is not a normal night. We do have a tradition at our city council meetings, and that is we open with an invocation. I've asked our council president, Dale Reynolds, to open us in prayer. If we could stand, followed by the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity we have tonight to be here and conduct city business. Thank you for the beautiful day we had today, and thank you for watching over us. Please help us tonight as we make decisions that affect all of our citizens. Please give us clarity of mind, and please help us to conduct business with integrity. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Reynolds. Okay, let's do roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Pingula. Here. Bills.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
Griffin.
Here.
All present.
This evening, we have 3 public hearings, and we are actually going to start with public hearing 1-3 first this evening. And so that is 1-3 is an action item. It's an appeal of the conditional use permit for above ground storage of potential harmful materials in excess of the quantities allowed by the bulk standards identified in code 10-19-3.b on 116.11 acres in the light industrial zoning district. This is addressed as 0 and 0 and 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0, and 9792 Ustick Road for Bradley Anderson of H&M Architects Engineers representing RRM CC7 LLC and RRN MIP LLC, Timothy Vole. The original concept is an on-site storage and packaging of potential harmful materials in individual containers ready for commercial distribution and sales in the retail stores. So we begin with the appellant, I believe. Is that correct, Rodney? Okay, so is our appellant, the person that applied for this application, here this evening? Yes. Thank you. So as you come forward, thank you for giving your name and your address, and then you will have, typically we do 7 minutes, but tonight you will have longer than that as needed, at a maximum of 15 minutes. If you don't need it, you don't need to take the full 15, but you do have a little bit longer for your comments this evening. So your name and address.
Thank you. Emil Antoine, 18217 Troutman Avenue. Before my time starts, I have a question about tonight's agenda. The CUP approved by the Planning and Zoning states that it is for above-ground storage of flammable, combustible, and corrosive liquids in excess of the quantities allowed by the bulk standards identified in the code for light industrial zoning. But the notice for this hearing changes flammable, combustible, and/or corrosive liquids to potential harmful materials. So I'm not sure what we're here to discuss. I'm concerned about the effect the change has had on public participation. I've spent hours trying to understand the CUP, and I'm confused about what we're here to discuss. And I need to ask, is this normal? I looked up the definition of potential harmful and came up with materials which can be toxic or dangerous when inhaled, ingested, or absorbed through the skin, such as lead-based paint. That's not remotely close to the type of materials contained in the applicant's request, and it reads like we're discussing a choking hazard warning label on a child's toy.
So let's pause right there, because we haven't started your time, but we probably should, because it sounds like you're somewhat talking
finished.
versus, but I'd like to pause real quickly. Did you in advance let Planning and Zoning know that you had a question regarding the language? And Rodney, I don't know if you've had the time to research this. Is there a disparity in the language between what was posted in this?
Mayor, yeah, there is a difference, and that is strictly because of the concerns we had with some of the media interpreting the way we had described this project to be much more extensive, and they described the whole building as containing harmful materials. And so the code is referenced. That's our legal standard. We have to cite the code that is being discussed. We've cited that code. We did change the language slightly to try to lessen what we were getting from everyone is that they were concerned about a chemical plant, the entire building being a chemical plant. So we tried to clarify that to the public, but the code reference has not changed at all.
Okay, so where it says on-site storage and packaging of potential harmful materials in individual containers, is that the language that is different than code?
Correct, but the language we used from code was, that wasn't the code language before either.
It wasn't.
So, no.
You just referenced the
We're
code.
just referencing code and then trying to describe what's in code.
Okay, and so you clearly, in your advertisement, referenced the code
Correct.
that you're calling on tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, so thank you for that clarity. With that, let's go ahead and start the time, and then you can continue on as you discuss your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council members, I am prepared to present my arguments under protest of the way this was described. I think it does confuse a lot of people. And I have been advised to read this, so like Joe Biden, I don't run down a rabbit hole or leave anything out, so please excuse the lack of eye contact. We're not here tonight to complain or demonstrate our objections to the distribution center, even though we still consider it to be an inappropriate land use. In respect to the existing residential neighborhood, and feel the zoning to be in violation of the Local Land Use Planning Act, and I'm wondering if now is not the time to form an entity, #StopTheSpud, to raise funds and find an expert to pursue that issue. If anyone is interested, contact me at #StopTheSpud. At times I've asked myself, why bother? Why not just leave this up to experts? Well, as we've seen over and over again from past and recent disasters, experts don't always get it right. My words are probably insufficient to sway or change your opinion on this project, but ask yourself if you would want this amount of hazardous material stored across the street from you. No doubt the applicant will testify to their great safety record and lack of incidents at other locations. But I ask you to put one word at the end of each of their safety claims: yet. Tonight we're asking the City Council to reverse the Commission's approval of the conditional use permit, allowing for the storage of material in excess of the quantities allowed by bulk standards identified in Nampa City Code 1019.3.b. Storage of the materials in quantities requested by the applicant are not reasonably compatible with the nature of the surrounding residential neighborhood. The city has taken the position that the 864,000 square foot project is approved and puts the conditional use permit, in a little box, namely the H3 storage area, and telling us that we can only discuss that little box, when in fact, materials covered by the CUP are not always in the little box of the H3 storage area, but are spread throughout the entire facility, as well as some 700 truck trailers parked at the site and traveling on roadways in and out of the facility. Therefore, the entire facility should be subject to the conditions of the CUP. Because of the hazardous material covered by the CUP, the applicant needs to comply with all the codes dealing with hazardous material throughout the facility, including those in Code Section 1025-4 that are detrimental to any persons, property, or the general welfare by reason of excess traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. The CUP does not cover the protected H3 room with the hazardous materials handled by the applicant. Material isn't hazardous only when it sits in the H3 storage room. We're concerned about traffic, noise, smoke and fumes, and glare. The provisions of the code cited by the commission and staff unrelated to 1025-4A were intended to govern conditions needed for a CUP. Then the code would have simply referenced those other codes. Instead, those codes are specifically spelled out. This is in recognition that the more specific requirements are needed to mitigate hazardous material handling before granting the CUP. If this is not true, the city should change the code. In any contract or law, specific provisions take precedence over general ones. Other problems exist with the city's condition of approval. In one section it states, Planning and Zoning Commission approved the conditional use permit for a multifamily building. That's right, a multifamily building, not a CUP. The conditions of approval go on to say the specific use of storage of materials that are potentially hazardous. But now it's changed back from harmful to hazardous. It fails to mention what, if any, steps are required for the protection from Class 1 flammable liquids, Class 2 combustible, and corrosive liquids contained in the applicant's narrative for the conditional use permit. Only potentially hazardous material, whatever that is, right? It hasn't been defined. There's simply no mitigation efforts that can be taken by the applicant that would make the storage of hazardous materials of the types and quantities requested safe in a residential neighborhood. The applicant has not presented any kind of safety plan that covers the manner in which fires and explosions will be addressed, not to mention any control of the continuous release of hazardous vapors into the neighborhood that will easily drift to schools, exposing children to continued long-term exposure to contaminants that would not be present without the facility. Certain types of uses require special consideration prior to their being implemented in a particular district, 1025-1. The purpose of review shall be to determine that the characteristics of any such use shall not be unreasonable or incompatible with the types of uses permitted in surrounding areas, and for stipulating that such conditions as may be reasonable, so that the basic purposes of the chapter shall be served. Nothing construed herein shall be deemed to require the Commission to grant a CUP. A conditional use permit may be granted only if the proposal conforms to all of the following conditional use permit criteria. And that's going to include in 1025-4A2 that the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of the property and project will not adversely impact the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity. And in 1025-4A5, that the proposed use will not involve activities, processes, materials, equipment, and conditions of operation that will be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, odors. Applicant fails to conform to all of the conditional use permit criteria in 1025-4A, 2, and 5. The warehouse without the hazardous material might be lawful, but that does not excuse the city from correctly applying codes pertaining to the storage of hazardous material, even if it attempts to redefine those materials as potential harmful. Again, whatever that is. The report goes on to cite requirements for light industrial development, zoning, LEED certification that are not pertinent to the CUP for hazardous material storage. Then in conclusion, it states this is compatible with other nearby industrial zone parcels within Napa's impact area. The statement ignores the fact that the hazardous material will be stored in the middle of a residential neighborhood, impacting nearby schools. Even nearby industrial parcels cited by the city are not storing hazardous materials in the huge quantities requested by the applicant. The report references Nampa Fire Marshal's letter as justification for the safe storage of materials in the CUP. But nothing in that letter addresses combustion of hazardous materials and liquids that are resistant to water suppression or incidents involving those same substances, many of which float on water outside the H3 storage room, the little box. In its conclusion, the city once again changes the terms flammable, combustible, and corrosive materials to the much less damaging sounding but misleading, potentially hazardous. If that's the case, then Class 1 flammable liquids, Class 2 combustibles, and corrosives are not contained in the approval and therefore have not been approved. The amount of hazardous material requested in this CUP drastically exceeds the thresholds in the cited code. The applicant is asking to store 37,439 gallons. That's 2 full swimming pools full of hazardous liquids in the H3 area, and another 69,414 gallons, or 4 more swimming pools, and another 53 tons more in the unprotected warehouse, in addition to whatever quantities may be awaiting shipping in the unprotected warehouse or in the some 700 truck trailers parked at the site. We're not talking about just one single commodity, but many different hazardous materials. And no one knows what the results of incidents involving several of those hazardous materials mixed together will have. And they're not insignificant quantities. And they're comprised of hazardous material with flash points from 73 degrees and boiling points at 100 degrees or less, and they float on water. I'm not appealing the distribution center under light industrial, only the conditional use permit involving the storage of such a huge amount of hazardous material and the devastating impact of fire or explosion that those materials will have on the adjacent neighborhood, as well as the effects of long-term exposure of vapors and fumes vented into the atmosphere. I realize the city and the applicant think the storage is safe, but we, the neighbors, are concerned about a catastrophic worst-case event, such as an explosion that travels at supersonic speeds through the neighborhood and schools. An event that has not been experienced or considered by the applicant. The applicant may have planned for incidents within the facility, but I'm wondering about external threats, wildfire, floods, earthquakes, other extreme weather, either exceptionally hot or freezing cold, power outages, loss of water pressure, gas or other utility disruptions, and maybe terrorism. If the city intended the hazardous material exceeding the limits set in light industrial zoning definition to be regulated by other code provisions, then the CUP code would merely reference those provisions. Instead, requirements are clearly and appropriately enumerated under conditional use permit provisions in 1025. A first duty of government is the protection of its citizens. Please don't ignore the duty for safety for the sake of economic development. If you can't uphold the appeal, please at least return the CUP request back to the commission and apply reasonable and necessary provisions of the code for safety measures to be incorporated in order to mitigate the risk. In conclusion, the notice of this meeting was flawed by failing to properly describe the agenda. Planning and Zoning Commission decision to approve the CUP is flawed and must be overturned for failure to properly apply codes specifically related to the hazardous material in the application. And finally, the staff report is flawed in several ways that I've previously described. It is in the best interest of the public, the city, and Tractor Supply for the council to approve the appeal and deny the conditional use permit. That will afford the applicant the opportunity to redesign the distribution center to properly fit within the existing neighborhood and avoid the cost of the city revoking the CUP after construction has begun. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions at this time? Okay, so we have a process that we start with you, then we have the original applicant come forward, then we have a staff report, then we will have a public hearing, and then you'll have an opportunity to provide some closing remarks at the very end.
All right.
So we will see you back in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so is our original applicant present? And thank you for sharing your name and address.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Yeah, my name is Brad Anderson, and I'm with H&M Company at 50 Security Drive, Jackson, Tennessee. And we are the design build firm for this project. The project will be an 865,000 square foot distribution center located on a 116-acre site. The building will contain rack and bulk storage of consumer products that are sold in Tractor Supply retail stores, and many of you have in your homes. These consumer products are shown in the accompanying photos taken inside the newest distribution center. The largest percentage of any one type of product in the distribution center is bags of animal feed, which you can see in these photos. This distribution center will replenish over 200 Tractor Supply stores throughout the Pacific Northwest. The approved conditional use permit is required to store Class 1 and Class 2 flammable liquids in the building's flammable storage room in quantities more than the threshold noted in the Napa zoning ordinance requirements for IL zoning. Any other distribution center or light industrial facility of this nature would also request the same conditional use permit from the City of Napa. These requirements are not in the International Building Code, and they're not in the International Fire Code. Instead, these are additional requirements in the City of Napa zoning ordinance. This distribution facility has a flammable storage room that is 24,000 square feet. This room is less than 3% of the total distribution center building size and less than 0.5% of the total site acreage. And you can see this on the attached slide. All flammable liquids at this facility will be received in individual prepackaged containers that have been packaged by the manufacturers for sale and distribution in Tractor Supply retail stores. The containers will be shipped on pallets for storage in racks in the distribution center until they are distributed in to the retail stores. The storage of these flammable liquids will be confined to the flammable storage room and will not be stored in any other location in the building and will not be stored in trailers on the site. You can see in the accompanying photos these products being stored in the containers on pallets inside the flammable storage room. Most of these containers will be 1 gallon or less, with a small percentage being between 1 and 5 gallons. Examples of these products being stored in the flammable storage room are paint, acetone, antifreeze, paint thinner, de-icer, roach spray, brake fluid, engine cleaners, mosquito repellent, rust remover, weed killer, as well as many other products you have in your homes. The flammable storage room has been designed to meet and in some cases exceed the requirements of both the International Building Code as well as the International Fire Code. The distribution center as well as the flammable storage room are equipped with an ESFR sprinkler system. Most sprinkler systems are designed to contain a fire until the fire department arrives. However, an ESFR sprinkler system is designed to extinguish a fire quickly and in most cases before the fire department has time to arrive. In addition, the storage room is equipped with an in-rack sprinkler system that will have sprinklers and separation baffles on each level of the storage racks. And you can see this in the photo. The building has an automatic fire alarm system equipped with both audible and visual alarms. The flammable storage room has an additional fire barrier protection between the main distribution center and the building storage room. All exterior walls around the storage room are 8-inch thick concrete walls. The storage room has double the required number of personnel exits and egress doors exiting the storage room. The drive-through doors in the storage room are automatic fire doors interlocked to the fire alarm system, and these doors separate the flammable storage room from the rest of the distribution center and will automatically close should a fire on either side of the door develop. Should these doors close, should these doors automatically close, any personnel that are in the storage room can still exit the building through other doors. And these doors are shown in the photo. The flammable storage room has a fire hydrant located adjacent to each exterior wall and a fire department hose drop at each door to the storage room. And this is also shown in the photo. Lastly, the storage room has a self-contained emergency storage for almost 60,000 gallons, should there be an accidental release of any liquids. And this will be contained in the flammable storage room if there is an accidental release. And this is shown in the slide. I would like to address several other concerns about the safety of the flammable storage room. First, have the walls been designed for blast protection? Blast walls are not required by the codes for this circumstance because of the commodities stored in the flammable storage room. The International Fire Code and the International Building Code outlines appropriate measures for the types of commodities stored in buildings. The commodities stored in this building do not require blast protection. The type, quantity, packaging, and arrangements of these commodities are not susceptible to explosion requiring blast protection for either the building occupants or the public. Per the code, this flammable storage room could be located within 60 feet of a public right-of-way. However, the proposed storage room is located 240 feet from the nearest public roadway. Second concern is regarding the safety of the exterior walls of the flammable storage room. All exterior walls for this building are 8-inch concrete panels. The code does not require the exterior walls to be fire rated. However, the concrete thickness of the walls provided has a calculated fire resistance of 4 hours. Third concern, why is the flammable storage room on the side of the building facing Midland Boulevard? And can it be moved to the opposite side of the building? The current location is shown on the screen. Distribution operations inside the building require the room to be located on the shipping side of the building, which is its current location. We position the shipping side of the building and the flammable storage room on Midland Boulevard side of the site, so the front of the building, as well as the office, would be facing the north side of the site and Midland Boulevard. This would allow the employee entrance to be located on Midland Boulevard and the truck entrance to be located on Eustick Road. If the flammable storage room were moved to the opposite side of the building, the entire building would need to be rotated 180 degrees from its current location. And that would place the front of the building and the office on the south side of the site facing Eustick Road. This would then require the employee entrance to come from Eustick Road and the truck entrance to come from Midland Boulevard. The best solution from a traffic perspective is to have the truck entrance on Eustick Road and the employee entrance on Midland Boulevard. Therefore, this is one of several reasons why we have the flammable storage room facing Midland Boulevard. The proposed building design for this DC and flammable storage room has been successfully implemented at all other DC locations that Tractor Supply operates. Other facilities within the network include a DC building located approximately 450 feet from a hospital, another approximately 2,200 feet from a high school, and another that is directly adjacent to a residential area. And you can see The bottom of the page and the left of the page, it's right next to it. It's our property line abuts to that residential area. All these facilities, as well as the other 7 distribution centers in the network, have successfully operated in the communities with no issues or concerns, including the oldest, which has been in operation for 25 years. I would request the council members request a testimony from Ron Johnson about the fire safety of the building as well as the flammable storage room. He has reviewed the plans and knows the commodities in this room, and he can testify to the safety from the fire department's perspective. Although traffic is not a concern of the CUP, this was mentioned as a concern in the appeal, so therefore I'd like to address the concern. A traffic impact analysis was prepared for the property for the proposed DC. This TIA has been reviewed and approved by the City of Napa, who also coordinated with Highway District 4. The traffic required traffic mitigations and road improvements as part of this project. The mitigations required by the TIA and the City of Napa are right and left turn lanes at the entrance on both Houston Road and Midland Boulevard. These are shown on the attached slide. Tractor Supply will be installing these mitigations at their expense as part of the construction of this project. The approval of the CUP will have no impact on traffic on Midland or Houston and the surrounding area. The amount of traffic created by this flammable storage room is very negligible. Lastly, there is a request in the CUP appeal to provide a berm of at least 6 foot in height, as well as a solid fence atop the berm or other suitable screening along Midland Boulevard. As stated in the staff report, berms and fencing fall under land use, and the land use of this property is currently zoned to permit distribution and warehouse activities as a matter of right. However, after listening to the concerns and in the spirit of being a good neighbor, Tractor Supply proposes to provide a 6-foot-high berm in the locations where the site topography allows space for this berm. Tractor Supply also desires to enhance the landscaping along Midland to provide a year-round dense landscape screen. In addition to these measures, Tractor Supply will add a landscape screening along the back of the trailer lot for the full length of the east side of the building. And you can see this on the proposed screening on the slide. The additional screening will effectively hide most of the view of the building from Midland. To show the effect of this screening on the view from Midland, H&M has prepared a line of sight drawing that shows a perspective view from the entrance to Jordan Lee Street. As you can see, the building and site are mostly screened from the view of Midland. I want to emphasize that these are additional measures that Tractor Supply has voluntarily chosen to take. The additional landscaping and berms are not required by the City of Napa Planning Department, nor as a condition of the CUP. Tractor Supply has chosen to provide these at a substantial expense to the project. As evident from these landscape accommodations, Tractor Supply wants to be a good neighbor and is pleased to provide these additional outline improvements in connection with the project planning. H&M has discussed supplemental screening with the City of Napa Planning. Although the City Planning Department does not require Tractor Supply to provide these additional landscape measures, the Planning Department fully supports this proposal. I'd like to point out that the conditional use permit application is not a land use question. This property is already zoned IL light industrial, and this project fits into and is supported by the City of Napa Comprehensive Plan. In addition, the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of this proposed project will not adversely impact the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity. The proposed facility is served adequately by essential public utilities and roadway infrastructure. The proposed facility will not be a detriment to the economic welfare of the community. And the proposed project will not involve any activities or processes, materials, equipment, and conditions of operations that would be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare of the community by reason of excess traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. Based on the merits of this request, Tractor Supply Company respectfully requests the City Council reject the appeal of the Planning Commission approved conditional use permit application. And thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions.
Mary Clay.
Thank you. Yes.
Sir, I forgot your name.
What
is your name?
Brad Anderson.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Anderson, I have a few questions here.
Sure.
In the initial statement by Mr. Antoine, he talked about flash. And for those who don't know what flash is, that's when the heat gets up so fast and it's so high that the flammables are not flammable until the gases escape, and then with the water causes an explosion. Okay. Now, you say that you have concrete that's probably one of the most strongest materials ever built. It's a winter concrete, they call it. But I have seen it to where you mix combustibles, flammables, and corrosives that once that flash is so intense, the concrete probably won't burn, but that causes an explosion, and that's when the concrete dissipates. So that's what I'm concerned with. So you talk about the competency that you have in this room holding all these flammables. And so what have you done to protect as much as you can, besides being code respondent for ordinance relating to the ordinances? What about that? It's a what-if situation, but you know what? I don't deal in what-ifs. I want to know.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. So
And I also have a follow-up after that.
So as I mentioned, all of these commodities are brought to the DC, and they're all in individual containers. They're all wrapped individually, all contained individually, anywhere from a 1-gallon container to most of them are less than a gallon, but some of them are 1 to 5 gallons. They are packaged and stored on pallets, so the commodities that you're seeing do not lend themselves to blast or explosion type events. And the way they are stored in this building does not lend itself to that. And that is why the code, when it does not require blast protection for commodities stored in a building such as this, does not require you to provide blast protection. So it's according to the code, it's not a likely event to happen the way these commodities are stored and the types of commodities in this building.
Okay, so that's a protection for the community. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But do you still agree that they could have the possibility of explosions?
You know, I'm not an explosive expert, but I mean, anything can happen, but the code sees it that these do not have the likelihood of having an event like that. And that's why they don't require blast protection in the
I see.
code for this type of
Okay.
commodity as stored in this type of situation.
The second is this. You've also talked about the fire suppression, the sprinklers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know that some of the combustibles, like wood, some metals and cans, you can use those for water. The water doesn't put out those flammables. What they do is they put out the fumes. That's what happens. But when you put a mix in with corrosives, with flammables, the thing that's important to realize is that the foam is the one that controls, it reduces the heat, that reduces the fire suppressants. So your system for the sprinklers only has water.
Correct.
Why doesn't it have, if you're trying to be careful with this, why doesn't it have water mixed with foam? Fire department is the same way.
So back to one of your questions here. I'm going to defer to the fire marshal to address commodities and how they burn and how he's much more versed on how commodities burn and how they fight those fires. So I'd ask that you ask that same question to Fire Marshal Ron Johnson. But as far as why we have the sprinkler system in there, and the sprinkler system that we have, it is a ESFR sprinkler system, early response, early suppression fast response is the name of the system. It's one of the most, it's the best, one of the best systems out there, and it's typically used in these type of facilities. And the system is not designed to contain a fire, it's designed to extinguish a fire. And so if a fire were to develop in one of these racks right here, or if you had, in one of these boxes, had one of the containers develop a fire, there are sprinklers above the rack, and above each level of the rack. And then you also see there are separation baffles between each rack, and that will prevent any fire from propagating from one level of the rack to the other, because fire is typically going to burn up. And so it's going to propagate upward. So that will prevent that, but the sprinkler, we also have an additional sprinkler system in the ceiling, and it is the ESFR system, and it is designed to extinguish the fire. And basically it just produces enough water to totally deluge the whole section of the warehouse until the fire is extinguished. And I know Ron Johnson has some experience with that, and he could probably comment on that as well.
Okay.
But the system we have in this building is sufficient to protect this building, the occupants in the building, and the public.
All right, now, the other question, and this is it, Mayor. The other question is this: if you knew you were going to be handling this a large amount of flammables, corrosives, and then have you notified the neighbors of an evacuation plan or a safety plan to keep them safe should, God forbid, something happen and have an explosion? Have you contacted them and told them what to do and what not to do?
So
I know you don't have to do that, but I'm just thinking out loud.
So every DC facility that Tractor Supply operates has a safety plan and an evacuation plan for the employees and the occupants on the site. Now, I can't answer your question in regards to do they do that for the general public. I can't answer that question specifically, but I do know they have an active safety plan and an active evacuation plan, and it's very sophisticated and very adequate.
Well, I can see that you have one for the employees, but you have residents close to you, and those are the ones that I am concerned about. And so the answer is no, you haven't had that.
The answer is not no.
It would be a good
The answer
education
is,
for
I don't
them.
have the answer to that question.
Yes, I'm
That'll
sorry.
be a question for Tractor Supply to answer.
I interrupted you, sir. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm just saying that it would have been probably a better idea to do an educational evacuation plan for the neighbors so they would know what to do. I still don't know what to do, and if I was to run out there when there was a fire. I think one thing I do is stay away. Unfortunately, the neighbors can't. They live there.
Understand.
That's all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, are there any further questions?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just a couple of questions
Sure.
for you. Thank you for your presentation. It's pretty thorough, and reading between the lines, there's a lot of information you provided. A couple of questions that I had coming into this evening that I didn't find in the packet, so I'll just ask you
Sure.
so that I get
Thank you.
confirmation. The above-ground storage that you're talking about is all within the structure, correct? There's no exterior tanks, there's nothing requiring a containment basin, nothing like that outside the facility?
All the commodities that will be brought into this facility and distributed out to the stores will be stored in this flammable storage room, all the Class 1 and Class 2 liquids.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll all be in this room.
And the EFSR sprinkler system that you described, is that only at the ceiling level, or is that in the and the racks as well?
So the ESFR sprinkler system is throughout the entire building, even in the main distribution center. So that fire protection system protects the entire building. In addition to the ESFR system, in the flammable storage room, we've added additional sprinkler protection in the racks.
Okay.
So there is double the fire protection in this room here, both in the ceiling and in the racks.
So is it activated by a smoke detector or heat?
So they're activated by the fire alarm, so yes.
So would that be a smoke detector going off?
I'll need to confirm that. I think it's both, but I'll need to confirm that.
So it would be localized in the area where the fire or the smoke is being developed?
Yeah, so the sprinkler system is designed to send water and basically sprinkler a large, I can't remember the exact dimensions of the area, but basically flood that area with water to extinguish any fire that develops there. So when it detects a fire in that room or in the rack or anywhere there, it will extinguish it. The sprinklers will come on, and it's designed to extinguish the fire.
So I would assume it's a wet pipe system, not dry.
It is wet pipe system,
Okay.
yes, sir.
And then the only other thing that, well, you had mentioned that the fire room itself is 4-hour rated tilt-up concrete construction. The balance of the building
Well,
is,
now let me correct you there. So the exterior walls have a calculated fire resistance of 4 hours.
Right.
The room is actually rated for 2 hours. So there's a number of things that rate the room, but it's rated for 2 hours.
I heard you say that the walls are all 8-inch concrete,
They are.
all four.
So rating and fire resistance is a different thing. I mean, the calculated resistance of that wall is for 4 hours. That's what, if you were to calculate the resistance of a fire for 8-inch concrete wall, it's for about 4 hours. But
That's
the
correct.
rating in that room is for 2 hours because that involves other things like fire caulking and some other things that allow you to rate a room.
2 hours fine, the 4 hours even better. So, but the balance of the building is a pre-engineered metal building, is that correct?
No. It's all tilt-up concrete construction.
So the whole
So the
containment,
entire building is 8-inch concrete walls all the way around.
so when you're talking about a containment room that has a 2-hour rating, you're talking about the whole building having a 2-hour rating in a sense.
If you wanted to look at that way, yes.
Well,
But it's not rated because you have additional measures you have to put in there that cause it to be rated. But if you wanted to look at the walls, what's their capacity to resist a fire, that's a reasonable conclusion.
The last question
yes.
I have that you might be able to answer, maybe not, is the ability for our municipal system for water to be able to provide full deluge in this building. What is the gallons per minute available to this site?
So one of the things we do when we go into an area to look at a site and its potential to support this building, there's a number of things we look at. We do multiple studies. One of the studies that we do is a water study, and it basically tests the quality of your water, the availability, the pressures, the flows. And we did some flow tests on Eustic Road where we're going to be receiving the water. And to be honest with you, the flows and the pressures in your system here are very good, probably better than any I've seen at any facility we've looked at anywhere in the country. So typically we would have an on-site tank for supplemental fire protection in a building this size. We didn't need it here. Your flows and your pressures are so good that we were able to provide ample water for this building.
So, and duration as well.
Duration as well, yes.
Fire flow and the duration.
Yes, sir.
So I'll ask Chief Johnson that one.
So I'm going to add one other thing too about how we receive these commodities. So we receive, we'll receive a commodity that may end up going to this room, but it'll come like in a single truck from a manufacturer bringing in whatever they're bringing into this facility. And those commodities will be removed from this truck and stored in this room here. They'll stay in this room until they show up on a SKU to be shipped to a store. Then they'll remove it, whether it's 2 gallons of this, a gallon of that, a gallon of that. They'll remove those single commodities out of this building in individual containers and then take them to the truck to be shipped to the store. So other than, the time when you have these small quantities, individual containers getting removed from this room to be shipped, they're going to be contained in this room the whole time. So.
Council, do you have any other questions?
Mayor. Mr. Anderson, thank you for being here, and I appreciate the additions, the communication and the added information that you provided, and also the berm and the extra landscaping. I think that was a nice addition, so thank you for that. I just want to say that I appreciate the appeals process just because it shows that our citizens are engaged, and it allows us to hear additional concerns and helps us get it right. So I appreciate you guys coming and being a part of the process. My question is, though, this flammable storage room, the materials that you listed, kind of paint, acetone, bug killer in these 1.5 gallon or less containers, I'm wondering what makes these different than Lowe's or Home Depot. I mean, you can go and buy paint there, and they have tons of paint, wall to ceiling of that, or a beauty supply. I mean, I could buy a gallon of acetone at a beauty supply. So what makes this different that it has to be in this fire room?
It's not different. We work for other retailers throughout the country, and we build other distribution centers for other clients of ours, and they as well have to have these type of rooms. So this is not uncommon. I mean, any retailer would have to have a storage mechanism like this to store these commodities. The difference is here is there is a limit in your zoning ordinance. It's not required anywhere else I've ever seen anywhere in the country. So the IBC and International Building Code and International Fire Code address rooms like this based on square footage of the building itself. So that's how they deal with the commodities in this building. To have these commodities singled out by gallons is unusual. So that is the reason we're addressing it here. But I do understand that there was another warehouse nearby recently that had to do the same conditional use permit. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council at this time? Okay. Thank you so much. As
Thank
you
you.
know, we will have you back at the end.
All right, thank you.
And thank you. So I'd like to ask a question. Rodney, there were some questions of Ron Johnson. Are you going to have him come forward as part of your presentation?
Yes,
Or
Mayor,
at the-
I've talked to him, and he's going to be coming up. I've got a slide just for him to
Okay.
respond to, and he's agreed to come up and speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Nampa. I want to address a couple of things, but I just want to start by saying planning and zoning's expertise is not in fire suppression or combating explosions or anything like that. What we're going to talk about today and what I can speak to is the process that we've gone through, the process we need to go through, the code, the correspondence we've received from agencies and the public, and then the legal authority for possible actions you can take today. And I will not spend time on the safety things, and that's why I've asked Ron to be here and to comment on that, because he is the expert on it. So again, the appeal, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, or excuse me, they approved the conditional use permit, and then this appeal is to try to overcome that, or overturn that, I should say. So that happened on December 10th of 2024. And then December 23rd, 2024, Emile Antoine applied for an appeal of the decision, and he listed these statements about why the appeal should take place. And I'll just note some of those things, including truck and forklift traffic and associated backup alarms, air pollution from the idling truck engines, light pollution from exterior lighting. So those were a couple of things that I just noted that don't really have to do with the conditional use permit that is being requested. And so we'll try today to focus on the conditional use permit criteria. So I have this slide to just remind you the land use itself was established for light industrial at time of annexation. Even before that, in 2004, so over 20 years ago, 21 years ago, this area was established as industrial before a lot of the residential development had occurred. That was done with public outreach and outreach to the neighboring communities. So the industrial designation in this area, the industrial use is established and entitled on the property. They have a legal right to have an industrial use on this property. And so any of the comments or the requested conditions that are requested today, they need to be centered on the conditional use permit. And I just want to address that really quickly. The appellant had stated that there was a difference. I shared some of the reason there was a difference in language. In fact, no reference in code says, it doesn't say anything about corrosive or combustible materials at all in this section of code. What it does say is, quote, potential hazards involved. So that is why we are having a conditional use permit. And the language change was to clarify with the public what is being requested, not to confuse at all. Again, I will rely on Ron for the public safety part of this. But just quickly, I know this is not the land use we normally have, but comprehensive plan calls this industrial since 2004. It is zoned IL, light industrial. To the south is light industrial. To the north is the county jurisdiction. To the west is the county jurisdiction. And then also Arbor subdivision, single family residential. 4,000 plus square foot lots, and to the east is county jurisdiction farmland and large lots, single family. Annexation happened back in 2021 for this, for a portion of this, and then September of 2022 was another annexation, and May 2023 was a property boundary adjustment. A little closer view there of the parcel. And that kind of maroon line on here is the impact area. So this is the very edge of our impact area with Caldwell. This is the site plan, a little closer view here. And I tried to adjust this so that Midland was going somewhat north, north and south. And we can go back to that if we need to. So appeal, we need to address this. We don't get a ton of these, and so our city attorney and I have been talking about this appeal process. There's been some changes or excuse me, not changes, but some clarification from the Idaho Supreme Court recently about appeals. But it comes down to the red here. After the public hearing, the council may, by resolution, affirm, reserve, or modify any decision, determination, or requirements of the commission. But before granting any item which was denied by the commission, or before changing any of the conditions imposed by the conditions in the use permit, the council shall make written findings of fact, setting forth wherein the commission findings were in error. So if a decision was made to overturn what the Planning and Zoning Commission decided, what they approved, you will need to find an error with their findings and conclusions, essentially. So the other criteria that you have to follow are these. A conditional use permit has to follow each of these things. So these are the findings that the Planning and Zoning Commission found were met with this proposal. And all of the facts are in your staff report that support these decisions, but I also have them on slides a little bit later. Okay, so 1019C, flammable and combustible liquids and gases, and they share some things about those. And then 1019C2, bulk storage. These actually aren't the crux of what we're going to talk about, but 1019-1 IL, light industrial district, is intended to create and preserve and enhance areas containing a wide range of manufacturing and related establishments, and is typically appropriate to areas providing a wide variety of sites with good rail or highway access. There is rail very close to this property, and so this area was designated as industrial a long time ago. So 1019-3B is the area that we were talking about, and this is where it says potential hazards involved. And then it lists these quantities. So it's a little bit tricky for planning and zoning because we're not experts in hazardous materials or potentially hazardous materials. So I don't, at some point in the past, these quantities were identified as needing a little more attention and potentially a conditional use permit. So when we shared this with the applicant, they said, yeah, we exceed those quantities. Even though they're individually wrapped, we exceed them. So those are the quantities that we're talking about. Okay, now I'm going to go into correspondence, and what I've done, we've received quite a bit of public correspondence, so I've summarized those into bullet points, and all of those have been listed in your staff report as attachments, those actual correspondence we've received. But I first want to go over what we heard from the fire district, and then we'll go into a couple more agencies. So I'm going to turn the time over to Ron and come back.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. So I'll kind of just go over my comments here, but then I may also answer, if that's okay, some of the questions I've heard as I go, as it applies. So one of my first comments on here was, sorry.
Sorry, Ron. Yes?
Could we have a clarification of two items, please, as you go forward?
Sure.
Okay.
Nampa Fire District covers this property. Does it cover the properties to the west of this property?
So Nampa Fire Protection District does cover this property, but the properties to the west is actually protected by Caldwell Fire Protection District. So there's the line right there in Midland. So
the purple line that is that the city boundary?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
yeah.
I just felt like those two things needed to be clarified as we keep moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so on the first item, and Brad did go over quite a bit of this, but one of the main points is that all these flammable and combustible liquids and corrosives are held in very small containers compared to what you would normally see in a hazardous materials storage facility that would be built as an H3. Those larger facilities are usually storing in bulk and do have some potential for larger spills. So when you're storing in these smaller quantities per container, and you're not doing any transferring between containers, it's all just handling the product in the containers, it does greatly reduce the risk of any large spills. So with that, to speak a little bit on the explosion worries that I've heard, it would, for starters, flammable and combustible liquids do not create a detonation, and I say that because the gentleman that mentioned supersonic speeds of an explosion, mass quantities of combustible and flammable liquids that ignite can cause a conflagration, which is just a much lower order explosion, so a much less chance of actually spreading. As an example, we've had buildings where they have a conflagration during fire conditions, and what it does is it'll pop out the garage doors. It doesn't usually leave the building. It just go boom and pop out the garage doors. Lots of cases of people inside the buildings surviving that. We had one here. So And then the design of the fire protection systems. The H3 portion would not normally require the ESFR sprinkler heads. It would normally require a ordinary response sprinkler with a K factor rating of 25. These are ESFR ratings ESFR rating with a K factor of 28. So what that does is each sprinkler head is very fast response, and then each head is flowing 200 gallons per minute over 100 to 140 square feet, depending on the exact head. So, you get 4 of those going at once, and all of a sudden you're flowing 800 gallons per minute over a concentrated area. And that's why they can be called a suppression type sprinkler versus just control. And then in the H3 area where they're adding the in-rack sprinklers, that's just that other level where you're going to get that just all the greater chance of putting out a fire at the level where it started, just in case the sprinklers above can't make it through to that fire. Although all the racking has to be designed with flue spaces, they're called longitudinal and now my mind's blanking me. But anyways, there's flue spaces going both ways that have to be 6 inches wide that allows that big water to come down and make it to those areas. They're also putting in a fire alarm, automatic fire alarm detection system, whereas the code only requires them to put a manual. So with a manual fire protection system, somebody has to see the fire, pull a pull station, and then the fire department responds. With the automatic, the first bit of smoke that hits one of those detection heads and we get dispatched. So it does get us there much quicker, sets off the alarm to the rest of the occupancy much quicker so that they evacuate much quicker, lowering that hazard.
Mayor, I apologize. You hit one of the questions that Councilman Rodriguez had asked, so I'm going to stop you.
Yep.
Both heat and smoke detection?
So it's required to have the automatic sprinkler system is primarily through smoke detection, but you can use heat detection where smoke detection isn't appropriate. And they both work satisfactorily. But think about a sprinkler head. It is heat detection. So sprinkler heads activate when enough heat gets to, if you look at these sprinkler heads up above you, they have a little disc in there or a bulb, it depends on the design, that melts at a certain temperature under a certain time. And so that heat hits that, it works like a heat detector, and then it just releases the water out of that head. And
So in this sense, the smoke is actually advantageous because it has to get pretty hot to melt that or burst that smoke. It's automatically going to go off.
So smoke detection will get, because the sprinkler system does also set off the fire alarm system as soon as the sprinkler head goes off, but alerting at the smoke level is going to just be that much quicker.
Thank you.
Yep. The other provision was, the 2-hour fire barrier between the H3 occupancy and the rest of the building. They're only required to have a 1 hour. That obviously just helps protect the employees on the other side of that building longer, and it protects us when we show up to fight a fire, because we'll fight it from the uninvolved side of the building to that side of the building. So they've actually installed hose connections for us right at those doors so that we could approach that in the safe environment behind that firewall and then hook up to some good water supply right there and then attack the fire from there rather than dragging hoses clear from outside.
There. So my question is, do you know what the fire gallons per minute is available to this site?
I failed to look that up, but I believe from some others I've seen out there, Daniel can probably confirm, but I think it's over 4,000 GPM.
So Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, we typically, from a standpoint when we run the models, we discount down to typically around 32,000 or 3,200 GPM, 3,500, based on the fire department's capacity to utilize. In that area, when we ran that model, we were doing that discount down, so I believe Ron's numbers would be accurate.
Yeah, I know you're allowed to reduce the fire flow requirement.
So Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, I'm not speaking to reducing the fire flow requirement. When we run the models and put out what we can supply, there are times where we are able to supply more than we report, And so that's the situation we're in here, where we're able to supply, in the event that something were to happen, we're under-reporting our ability to supply the water there as a safety factor. And so, yes.
I have other questions, but should we wait until he's done?
Yes, unless it's directly related to what he's talking about.
It is.
It is directly related to
Right.
this? Okay, go ahead.
Well, we're talking about basically a 20-acre building. That's a big building.
Correct.
We're talking about the fire flow capability to the site to be able to fight a fire within the building if something were to happen. The rapid response heads that we've heard about obviously helps to fight the fire localized and then to keep it from spreading beyond the ability for the sprinkler system to be able to fight that fire. We know that the separation, basically a 2-hour wall assembly around that room, along with the whole building itself, is 2 hours. So we're talking about the safety of the building. When you look at the code, it falls into an unlimited category. To be that big, it has to be an unlimited area building, which is a fully non-combustible building. So there's nothing that's going to carry the fire in the structure itself. It'd only be the contents.
Correct.
So that's what we're talking about. So my question to you is, when we look at a type 1 or a type 2 building, what the fire flow requirements are for a building this size, it's off the scale. I mean, because this is big.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the ability to reduce the amount of fire flow required by the International Fire Code, anything less than 6,000 gallons per minute, obviously it's within your purview to do that.
Yes.
Knowing that they have these capabilities. So is the building safe from a standpoint of being able to allow a fire to spread quicker than the sprinkler system can put it out with fire curtains? Or what is basically stopping that air movement up along the ceiling structure especially? Is it air curtains? Have you done the analysis on the building itself?
So at this stage, we've, we had meetings to come to agreement on the items that are above and beyond the fire code, because we don't have the final fire sprinkler and fire alarm plans in yet. So this is all pre-planning to make sure that when it's built, there's no surprises. They're able to provide the safety factor that we need.
You outsource that review?
This one, we'll probably outsource the sprinkler review on this one to WC3.
Is the local vendor for the
It's the
sprinkler
local,
system?
yeah.
Okay.
And we work together with them, so.
State Fire Marshal then would review it?
State Fire Marshal does not review it,
Doesn't?
so, no.
So who do you outsource to?
Oh, it's a company called WC3,
Okay.
West Coast Code Consultants. They have fire engineers on staff that basically, they're very good.
So you're
And-
confident the building is safe and it has the
Yes.
capability to be able to suppress a fire within it?
Yes.
Okay.
And any weaknesses that would show up through final designs have to be mitigated. They have to meet fire code and building code. And so we're starting out in a place where we know we're above fire code, but we still have to review all the little details, and those will just have to be followed. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Mayor, find where I left off here. So I guess I left off where the extra hose connections to assist in our firefighting operations. And then they also provided extra exiting locations for the occupants within that area. Just as some of the questions were coming up earlier, if it's okay with Mayor and Council. I guess this is a repeat of what Brad said, but code only requires, now this is unlimited buildings, so code only requires a 60-foot separation between this and lot lines or other buildings, and we're to the far side of the road. What I measured was 281, so I feel really safe about that. To address a concern over water being used for suppression instead of foam, that has to do with that has to do with the small amounts of spill we would expect to see because of this being divvied up into so many small containers, and the mass amount of water that we're supplying. You can overcome that and cool a fire to where it goes out, even if it is a combustible and flammable liquids fire. If they had vessels big enough that required foam suppression, of course we would be requiring that, but they don't. So you can put enough water on a flammable liquid fire to put it out when it's at these scales. So check my, And just to follow back on the flashpoint definition, Councilman Rodriguez, just to be very clear, the flashpoint is just the temperature of the chemical that when it hits a certain point, and that's when it will ignite. Not necessarily explode, that's just when it hits an ignitable mixture. So if it's in open air, it ignites. If it's in an enclosed vessel and it reaches that, then yes, you can get a little bit of an explosion or a big explosion. It just depends on the size of the vessel. But we're talking about small vessels here. So I think that covered all the questions I heard, and I'm open to any more you have.
Mayor Kling,
Yes?
I do have one. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
'Cause you and I have worked on some of those things.
Yes, we did.
We have. I just have one question, because I wonder, do you know if this building is heated with natural gas or is it electrical?
I did not look at the mechanical plans for that, so I
I'll
think
have
that
the
would be a
gentleman look
question
at
for them.
Okay,
applicant.
so I'm getting a nod, yes.
Part
You know
of
where I'm
an
going.
H3, yeah, where you're going. There are provisions in the code that they'll have to follow in an H3 that involves protected ignition sources. So you have to have rated electrical, and you can't have open pilot lights, so you have to have intrinsically safe heat. So that's all covered in the base code.
I see, so the water heater that they have is used, I imagine.
Yeah, but it's not going to be in the H3 space.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
is how you handle that. So,
Oh, I see, just put it away from.
unless I'm wrong. But
Okay, so have you ever seen a situation to where a combustible liquid like this is compounded by the safetiness or unsafety of using natural gas to the building itself?
I have seen natural gas compound plenty of fires when fires impinge on the natural gas supply.
Right.
And free release natural gas into the building. And that can happen from any combustible
Right,
that
okay.
directly impinges on a gas line. I don't recall any specific fires
Okay.
in my career that involved flammable liquids.
Would you say that they're within, you said they're within code in protection of the natural gas versus the combustibles that are
Yeah,
there?
there'll have to be separation between any or rated, like I say, rated electrical switches and lights that don't supply ignition sources, and any gas unit heater in there would have to be intrinsically safe, where there is no exposure of the gas flame inside the unit to outside air.
Okay, that's what I was getting, okay, thank you. No further, Ben.
Yes?
So Ron, real quick, any problems with the Amazon 800,000 square foot facility, fire-wise?
No. A similar situation with them, with everything they're storing in there. They came to us with a need to add to their fire suppression capabilities based on plastics versus flammable combustible liquids, but during fire conditions act a lot alike. And so, yeah, we had them over-design that building just like this one, and so we've mitigated that hazard. So now their systems has been proven through fire tests, which we also have fire tests in this case, showing that the fire protection being provided is more than adequate. So,
And the distribution buildings that have been built north of Amazon, they're near neighborhoods.
yes.
Any problems in those buildings being built, used, or otherwise
No.
getting occupancy?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Nothing beyond the normal, just getting everything done on, to get occupancy, because there's a lot of construction going on, but nothing in regards to this type of problem.
The same would be the distribution buildings that have been built recently north of Nampa, amalgamated.
Amalgamated? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're near neighborhoods where
Yes,
subdivisions have
yeah,
come in close
yeah.
to the industrial properties.
Yeah, there's a lot of industrial that, even some of it's empty and we won't know what's there yet, but when they do, they have to put in a TI permit and we'll evaluate all that, so.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, Rodney, we'll let you finish your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you, Ron.
I just wanted to reemphasize one thing I forgot to speak about, but Ron touched on it. He said it's from the flammable storage room to the property line of the roadway was, I think he said 280. Just a rough estimate based on their plan set. It looks like about 300 and close to 350 feet from that room to the nearest resident. So just wanted to emphasize that as well. Some of the correspondence we've received has been about that, about just making sure that we have setbacks. This far exceeds our setbacks for this zone.
Rodney, could we talk about that for just a minute?
Sure.
My understanding is 60 feet is what's required.
Correct.
We have well over 200 feet. Early on, they said 240. I think Ron said, somebody said 281. You just said 350.
Yeah, and I'm saying from the room to the nearest residential building.
Okay.
Yep,
Is more like 350.
it's over 300, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, the Nampa Building Department submitted their statements and just said that it needs to comply with building code and fire code. Valley View School District also submitted comments. They sent a memo dated January 6th, authored by Joseph Palmer, and expressed concerns about potential exposure during accidents, spills, or emergencies for school children and staff. And he wrote this. I'd like to just quote it because I think this is important. We respectfully request a thorough evaluation of these risks and to prioritize the safety of children and school environments in your deliberations to the project, stating that the hazardous materials could be disruptive and harmful to school operations. We also encourage the exploration of alternative locations or enhanced safety measures, including but not limited to increased setback distances, secondary containment systems, and emergency response plans tailored to protect the surrounding community. So I just wanted to emphasize a couple of things there, just the thorough evaluation and then exploration of alternative locations or enhanced safety measures. So we've talked about a lot of enhanced safety measures today, and we have thoroughly analyzed this. I would say the only thing that hasn't really been addressed that he stated here was emergency response plans tailored to protect the surrounding community. But again, I'd say with those setbacks, with the emergency or the fire suppression facilities in place, I think that kind of mitigates those concerns. And so I would say that we have evaluated each of those. Adler Industrial just expressed support for this. As an owner of industrial subdivision directly south, they believe the project will have a positive impact for the citizens. And then Tractor Supply Company testimonials, of course, supported this, as you would hope they would. And then the public comment. We received comments from 25 people, and their comments are contained in full in your staff report, but I just wanted to emphasize or go through each of these. City of Nampa intentionally excluded Caldwell residents when annexing the property. Meaning, I should have made that a little more clear. City of Nampa intentionally excluded Caldwell residents' participation, involvement. And then the next one, City of Nampa didn't notice the neighbors for the parking variance. Next one, a variance from code is requested to store flammable, combustible, or corrosive materials. I just wanted to point out a couple of things on those last two. A variance was not requested. There was a lot of comments of saying, why are they seeking a variance from what they are allowed in code to do? That's not what is happening here. This is not a variance. This is a conditional use permit. There's an expectation of approval if you can mitigate the concerns. Then the other one was the parking variance. A parking variance is required by state code and to notify the immediate adjacent parcels. And so that's why it's not so dramatically notified to the neighborhood. That one is a separate issue. Danger of the storage of materials poses to residents and animals in schools. Traffic concerns related to truck traffic, school traffic, etc. Impact to property values. Scheduling of hearings in early December when is near the holiday season. Incompatibility of land uses, that was the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Incompatibility of land uses with the existing residential use. Odors, fumes, light, and chemicals, including spills, impact to residents and water. Fire stations are not located close to the property. Changes the community character in the area. The project is a chemical plant that poisons children. Not enough screening was proposed, and semi-truck parking near bus zones and in front of the property. So those were, I tried to just address all of the concerns and give you a bullet list instead of listing every single one. Okay, so conditions of approval. Applicant owner shall comply with all city codes, policies, and standards in place at the time of the property development, redevelopment, including but not limited to International Building Code, International Fire Code, and codes set in place by Nampa Fire Department at time of property development and redevelopment. A condition of the 6-foot berm cannot be attached to this because it doesn't have the nexus or relate to addressing the conditional use permit for the potentially hazardous materials. But they have offered that. And then here are your proposed findings. And we've addressed a lot of these in our conversations here. I've listed them out, and I'm happy to cover them in detail. This is where, in our meeting last week, we talked about, do we need to walk through these carefully? I'm happy to do that, but I feel like we've addressed a lot of these concerns. And then I'll just maybe point out the conclusion unless you want me to go back through some details and slow it down again. So the conclusion, the proposed use is supported by the Nampa Comprehensive Plan because the Nampa Comprehensive Plan encourages industrial development and preservation of industrial land. This property is zoned light industrial, which is in conformance with the industrial designation specified by the Comp Plan future land use map. The next one, that the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of the property and project will not adversely impact the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity due to the nature of the property being designated and zoned as industrial. This is compatible with other nearby industrially zoned parcels within Nampa's impact area. The design of this project will provide landscaping that will ease the transition from industrial to residential with Caldwell city limits in impact area and will require industrial design review for the structure. So this is a little bit tricky because we're starting to move into that land use versus the conditional use permit that we're actually here for. But I still think those things apply for the industrial use. The next one, the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services because the utilities are readily available. There is capacity to serve this property, and police and fire services are available to this property. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community as it will provide jobs and services. Per the economic development strategy, currently the city is looking for revenue sources including distribution. The proposed use will utilize industrially zoned property that is currently vacant. And finally, that the proposed use will not involve the activities or processes, materials, equipment, and conditions of operation that will be detrimental to any person's property or general welfare by reason of excessive traffic noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors because it will be regulated by Nampa Fire District in terms of site design and protections. The Nampa Fire Marshal indicated that there will be no detriments to safety with all the conditions met. And here are a couple of motions for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have.
Rodney, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Rodney before we move into public hearings?
Mayor, just a quick question regarding the legalese, once again, that you had put up on the screen. The red wording mentions modify. What does it mean by modify in the sense of when we make a decision, if we even move that direction? I understand approve the appeal, deny the appeal. What is our bounds on modify?
Madam Mayor and Councilman, I think I'm going to turn to our attorney here, but just state that modify is adjust what was approved and modify that decision. Again, you'll have to state how they erred if you're modifying it.
And I'll build on that, Mayor. So the framework that you're here tonight, you're wearing your appeal hat. And so Rodney's done, I think, a commendable job of walking you through what that legal standard is. I'll add another gloss for you and for the public's awareness. So you're here evaluating the four corners of what planning and zoning reviewed to determine, pursuant to your code, the red font that's in your packet, what error, if any, what took place with planning and zoning, what you would be looking for, if there was any glaring obvious deficiency in the reasoning or logic of planning and zoning. If you can achieve that step, that would be an instance where you'd be able to modify.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rodney. Okay, so as we get ready to step into the public hearing, I would like to defer again to our legal counsel, just to make a comment to review why we're here tonight. Because there have been different comments made about berms and landscaping, but tonight, this appeal is related to, very specifically, keeping us right in line.
Yeah, I'd be happy to reiterate that. We're here tonight for an appeal of the conditional use permit. That is one facet, an element of the entire application. What has already been decided, as reiterated by staff, is the annexation and the zoning designation. So we are here for the limited scope of a conditional use permit.
Excuse me, related to above ground storage of these flammable, combustible, and/or corrosive liquids.
Yes, that's
very specific to that.
Yes, a narrowly tailored conditional use permit to those specific uses. Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so how many people do we have signed up to testify this evening?
Madam Mayor, we have 7 people so far.
Okay. I'm curious with a show of hands, how many people want to testify that did not sign up? Are there a few people that did not sign up? Okay, so we have a few. So what we're going to do, as we enter into I don't know how many of you are used to going to a public hearing, so I'll just share with you how we approach this. As you come forward, please state your name and address. And thank you for being aware of what we're here for tonight, which is the conditional use permit. You will have 3 minutes after you state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. There's a timer out there so you can see when it's expired. And after we get through the people that have already signed up, then we will move to those that did not get to sign up, and then we'll get to you. So we'll begin with the first person signed up.
Mayor,
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to request that the people who speak and give their address, they speak slowly and clearly so I can catch their address in here and we can show it on the screen.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Joseph Lopez, and on deck is Jeff Rodine and David Miller.
Good evening.
I'm Joseph Lopez. My address is 2619 Strayhorn, Caldwell, Idaho. As a native Idahoan, seeing all this development is a pretty hard pill to swallow, especially seeing that all the developers are coming from areas like
Madam
Sherman
Mayor.
Oaks, California,
Yes.
Los Angeles, California, Tennessee.
Hang on.
Madam Mayor.
Hang on one second.
I'm
Yes?
sorry, can you please speak into the mic, because
Sorry.
otherwise you're not getting
Yes.
caught on.
We don't get to hear you online thank you.
Yeah, so
Pull the mic down.
And pull it, yeah, really close. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sure you heard what I just said. So my main question here tonight is, I think, mainly for the city attorney. If I can read what I found this, I'm going to lead to the question and then I'll be done. But Section 67-6506 of the Idaho State Legislature reads, "No member of a governing board or a planning and zoning commission with a conflict of interest shall participate in any aspect of the decision-making process concerning a matter involving the conflict of interest. A knowing violation of this section shall be a misdemeanor." If there is one or more of the planning and zoning commissioners on the city of Nampa that have a direct business involvement with the developers, is there an avenue that we can take to further investigate that, to determine whether it is a conflict of interest?
Mayor, I think what I'd comment on that is The plain language of 6506 regarding conflict of interest puts a duty onto the Planning and Zoning Commissioner to disclose an economic interest, and it's not as broad as you often think at first blush. The proper venue to do that is here. You've stated it on the record.
The what?
You've stated your concern here on the record.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but there is a concern that I would like to bring to light, and I just don't know what avenue to take, because I feel that these decisions being made are at the expense of the people, and it's profit-driven by people from these giant areas coming here into our backyard, and it's not appreciated by the people that live here. It's easy to say that driving through 100 trucks a day in that one little intersection isn't that big of a deal, but it is for us that live here and raise families. So where can I go from here, though, to further investigate that conflict of interest matter?
Mayor, what I'd say to that is I represent the city, the entity itself, and no individual member of the city or resident. You're free to obtain your own legal advice as to that matter.
Okay, yeah, I guess in a sense, I'm kind of putting the planning and zoning commissioners on notice, because there isn't some information that we want to bring to light about what they're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. I would like to state, and typically we don't respond after a public statement, but I can't speak to planning and zoning. I can speak to city council. This particular item has been appealed to city council. If city council has any conflict of interest, they have to state it, and we typically would state it either before or after the public hearing. And so unless I'm not aware of any council member that has any type of relationship or any dealings with this particular company. So, and it has landed here with us, and so this will be a decision tonight. And council is required to express if there's any conflict of interest. And if there was a conflict, they would be recused from having any kind of a vote. So we will clarify that tonight from this group. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Jeff Rodine, and on deck is David Miller and Jason Hanks.
Mayor, Council, good evening. So I just want to come, 3 minutes doesn't feel like it's enough time to talk about everything. What I'd really like,
real quickly.
I'm sorry, Jeff Rodine, 18283 Spice Bush Avenue, and that's Nampa.
And sorry, address again?
18283 Spice Bush.
Spice Bush. Thank you.
It's real, I promise.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Thank you. So what I really want to touch on tonight for everyone here is a lot of individuals are going to talk about the explosives, the containers. I want to talk about traffic, and the reason I want to is I think we can still get there on the conditional use permit, because Section 5 specifically talks about the, sorry, I screenshotted it here. Proposed will not involve activities or processes, materials, equipment, or conditions of operation that will be detrimental to persons, property by reasons of excessive traffic, noise, smoke, fumes. I'll just be fully transparent. In my career, I am with the Idaho State Police. I've been with them for 8 years. 2 of those years was in crash reconstruction. I've responded to multiple crashes, from property damage all the way up to fatality at Highway 20 in Chinden, just outside my backyard. I have had to run code up Midland Boulevard through the marketplace, and it's not fun at 5 o'clock traffic. At the end of the day, this proposed location with the amount of trucks coming in and the traffic, we've got to figure something else out. You guys probably don't live in the backyard of this area like I do, but to have my family there, my kid goes to school there at Desert Springs, and then to, in a professional atmosphere, do what I've done for 8 years, working the road, taking a patrol car out and trying to fight this traffic whether it's morning shift, night shift, we are going to have problems. So I remember the last meeting, he proposed that there's 3 basically ways to bring the trucks in. I'd like him to, Mr. Anderson, to clarify if he can later what the proposed route was, but I believe most trucks coming in are going to get off North Side or come up Midland. The marketplace, we can argue now, I think you guys can agree, it's just as busy as Eagle Road, if not busier. I don't have traffic study on that, but the cars there, you get off at Karcher, and I mean, going to Chick-fil-A and that side of the marketplace is backed up to that intersection. We are going to have problems with the traffic. And then for North Side, same issues. Highway 20, again, that's coming from out of your jurisdiction, right? That's north of the city limits. However, Highway 20 in Midland is one of the most dangerous intersections in this entire state, and I can personally testify to that. We need to improve the roadway there, and that is a very long future plan out with ITD. So with the kind of them coming back and talking about the landscape and additions and stuff, I know earlier in land use it was talking about adding the tree lines in this. We need to do something like Amazon did with the roads before we even consider this location. Amazon is a very similar size with the distribution center, anywhere between 600,000 to 1 million square feet. That's what this site is. And you guys know what Amazon was willing to do for the city of Nampa when they came in to put that distribution center in. So I think that my points are valid because of that they're talking about the excessive traffic, and then obviously the other stuff is more concerned with the chemicals in there. But again, I just would really ask you guys to consider how many people showed up tonight. We're all neighbors, we're all acquaintances, friends. You guys don't necessarily live where we do, but just me seeing this on a daily basis needs to take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is David Miller, and on deck is Jason Hanks and Heloise Love.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is David Miller. I live at 17798 Goose Ridge Avenue. My concern is directly with the conditional use. The codes put up by the appellant and also by this gentleman here, sections 10, 9s, it didn't matter. The amount of chemicals on those are lower than what they're storing. And that's what the appeal's about, is the amount of chemicals they're allowed to store above and beyond the codes of the city. And that's what it's all about. Not about the safety, not about all that. I mean, yes, we're concerned about the safety, but we're appealing because the standard code, whether these be 1 inch, 1 ounce, 1 gallon, it's the amount of chemicals above and beyond this code. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, do you want me to respond at all to that?
No.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't, just because you can take notes if you would like to. The original applicant can respond to those also when they have their opportunity to provide response, but during this time, we probably won't.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Jason Hanks, and on deck is Heloise Love and Albert Pardo.
Good evening.
Mayor, Council, 103 82 Hazy Glen Drive. 2 words.
And go ahead and state your name again.
Jason Hanks.
Jason, thank you.
Okay. So first thing I'm going to say is every building in the United States that has had a hazardous leak, hazardous accident, hazardous explosion, whatever you call it, has been approved by a fire department. Every single one. I've lived in parts of the world where that's not the case. You don't know if fire ever looked at it. So it's a luxury we have, but they can get it wrong. What wasn't included in the fire report was common sense. And no, I respect the fire department, but there's no common sense put into it. The closest you could possibly get with this hazardous material is Midland. The absolute closest. Mr. Anderson stated that this is the best fit for the property. You need this on this side of the property. Well, because employees come in one end, trucks go out the other. Well, their last big facility they built in Maumelle, Arkansas, employees' trucks come in the same entrance. Same entrance. They don't have two entrances, so why can't they switch the building around? About traffic, it is in the CUP. 50 to 100 trucks a day. They said 50 in, 50 out. I don't see how that's possible. You're not going to have empty trucks coming in and full trucks going out. You've got full trucks going in, you've got partial trucks going in. You've got partial trucks going out. You've got empty trucks going out, and you have full trucks going out. With a building this size, with the cubic feet of storage, 50 per day in, 50 per day out is not realistic. Noise, it's also brought up in the CUP. An idling diesel truck emits 85 decibels of sound at 50 feet. According to studies, every time you double that distance, it drops by 6 decibels. So when you get to 1,600 feet, you are at 55 decibels, which is the EPA standard for residential areas. So if you look at 1,600 feet, draw a circle, you cover half of Arbor, you cover all the way up to Castle Peak, those are in Caldwell. All of the east side of this property is residential, NAMPA approved. Also, Rodney mentioned that this was annexed in 2004 or so. He also said that it was annexed as late as 2023, which is correct. So, when they annexed it in 2023, there was no notification sent out. We live there. No notification.
Madam Mayor, time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is
Your mic went off.
Sorry. Our next speaker is Heloise Love, and on deck is Albert Pardo and Craig Hanks.
Eloise Love, 10070 Iron Gate Drive. So I know the project's going through. I am all for business taxes. I am. I want the tax, base up. I want good neighbors. And so I want to say at this point, in relationship to the CUP, as far as noise, I first want to thank Mr. Anderson for commenting about landscaping even on December 10th. He, after there was a discussion, he did bring up that he would like to talk about maybe additional landscaping, and then we kind of ended the meeting. So I really do appreciate that it was heard. So in relationship to noise, if it is some way less expensive to put a taller berm with gravel, I think it's an elegant look. I think down the road, the concrete, what is it called, knife? I can't think of the name, but it's just down on Midland. That berm is about, in areas, I realize it can't be a big berm everywhere, but if the berm could be taller in some areas, less trees, maybe that's less expensive. Gravel berm with a fence on top, I think goes a long way for good neighbors. And I appreciate him even bringing up the term good neighbors. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Albert Pardo, and on deck is Craig Hanks.
Good evening. 18245 Hush Creek Way. 18245 Hush Creek Way. Hush. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just really quick, I've been an Idaho resident my entire life. The only time that I was gone from Idaho was when I spent 24 years in the Marine Corps. And I retired, came back here. The intent was to stay here in Nampa, where I was born and grew up. But the area has grown so much, it looked like another California town where I just left. So I decided to move to Salmon. And the only reason I found myself back here in Nampa is because my oldest daughter had a baby, and so now we're doing grandparent duties, okay? But going back to why we're here, as it's already been mentioned, for the cup, okay? My concern is not just for the residents and myself now that I live right near the area where they're going to be doing all of this, but also for my grandchild, okay? I understand all the mitigations that have been taking place and all that kind of stuff, but I've been in the middle of explosions, okay? I know what explosions can do. I know that everybody has testified to the fact that, oh, you know, we have these mitigations in place to stop that kind of stuff. But I'm going to also tell you that I worked for Track Supply for a short time, and it's not just 2 gallons, 1 gallon. They have up to 5-gallon containers that they carry in the stores. And those are all coming from manufacturers, as it was already presented. And I'll tell you, when they arrive at the store, they're not always in the best conditions. They're leaking, they're broken, fumes coming out of them, that kind of stuff. So if it's coming directly from the manufacturer to the warehouse, what's being done at the warehouse to stop that? At this point, I can honestly say nothing, because we were receiving it that way at the store. So what I'm going to say is that, you know, there is potential for leakage. There is potential for broken containers within the storage capacity there at the warehouse. You know, so even with mitigations, it can happen. And so I think that has to be taken into consideration, that although we have the walls, the fire suppression systems, that kind of stuff, there's always room for accident, there's always room for oversight, that kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to bring that out and present that portion of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to our country.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Craig Hanks.
Good evening. Craig Hanks, 10144 Elvera Lane, E-L-V-E-R-A Lane. And when I logged in, it changed it to Elvira, but it's Elvera. So, Madam Mayor and council members, thank you for your service and for taking your time. It's been very good for me to be here and to really hear some of the accommodations that Mr. Anderson talked about. One of my concerns surrounds around groundwater. So there is a strip of houses between Castle Peak and Arbor right down Midland Boulevard that's in Canyon County, and we all have groundwater wells. And so I want to pose a few questions. Understanding smaller packaging, what's the risk, and maybe this is to Mr. Anderson, and if he could address this in his, but what's the risk of, you know, damaging or dropping one of those loads and running those into the parking lot? And I saw in the plat there's some containment areas. I want to know, are those lined? Are they monitored? One of the things on the conditional use permit said federal and state. I don't know if is it planning and zoning even addresses this, or if this is DEQ and EPA? But had some questions there. One question on the water supply. Is there a chance that with the continued development, the pressure goes down? As right now it checks a box, but as we do continue, do we lose some pressure there? I will comment on, I love the thought of the employees going in with the trucks. I live right across where the employee entrance is, Elvera Lane. And Midland is becoming Eagle Road. It is just almost, especially on a Saturday, people coming down 2026 down to the shopping center. You're halfway through, and it's tough to time. You know, I encourage my kids to go right out of there, but that would be a thought. Let me see if I have anything else. Oh, the other thing that we've talked about is if there was an accident. And I do think it'd be important for the community to understand they've got a plan. But if there was an accident, or something going on, is there an area that is impacted by the evacuation zone? I mean, is there something there? Because within a mile, you have 2 elementaries, a middle school. Just over a mile and a quarter, you have a hospital. So I just think it'd be important to think about that and have a plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we do not have any more advanced signups.
Okay, so this is our opportunity for those that did not get signed up to go ahead and provide testimony. If you would like to come forward, you know the plan, right? It's 3 minutes. State your name and address and go ahead and come forward.
Chase Boland, 50 Security Drive, Jackson, Tennessee. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to us, H&M Company, as we're the design build firm selected by Tractor Supply to build this facility. H&M Company was founded in 1957 near Jackson, Tennessee, and has been a trusted name in the engineering and construction industry for over 67 years. We specialize in a variety of sectors, including manufacturing, heavy industrial, distribution, power, and institutional industries. We are proud to be recognized in Engineering News Records rankings, where we are listed as 187 of the top 400 contractors in the nation, number 56 in the top 100 design build firms in the nation, and number 12 in the top 25 distribution contractors in the nation. Year after year, we are also a top contender for Tennessee's largest construction company. Specific to this conditional use permit and the flammable and hazardous storage room we are discussing, I did a quick glance through our records and found that we have been responsible for the design and construction of over a dozen flammable and hazardous storage rooms for various clients at various locations across this country, Tractor Supply including several of these. We are well versed in the specific requirements for these rooms and take great pride in our safety record. In over 67 years of operation, we have never had a post-construction incident involving the design, construction, or functionality of one of these rooms. Additionally, I would like to bring the council's attention that flammable and hazardous storage rooms are not uncommon in the distribution center industry. Retailers handling items like makeup, cleaning supplies, lawn care products, home improvement products, and other everyday household items all have flammable and hazardous storage rooms at their facilities. These rooms are critical to the retailers that provide us the products that we use in our everyday lives. We understand that the community has some concerns with the flammable and hazardous storage room proposed in this conditional use permit, and we have listened to those concerns with sincere consideration. I want to reassure not only the City Council, but also the citizens of Nampa that we have taken great pride, diligence, and precaution in ensuring that we provide not only a safe building for Tractor Supply, but the Nampa community as well. Based on H&M Company's professional expertise and experience in designing and constructing these type of rooms, along with the multiple other reasons that Mr. Anderson has mentioned tonight, I would respectfully ask that the council reject this appeal to Tractor Supply's conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. 50 Security Drive. My name's Kyle Rookstool. At 50 Security Drive. You won't find it on there. I'm the project architect for this project. I don't have time to discuss all the specifics that were mentioned and all the design considerations that went into consideration for this project, but I would like to reinforce and emphasize that every aspect of this building has been carefully designed to comply with the International Building Code and the International Fire Code, and is being permitted in a rigorous, scrutinizing, and cooperative effort with the City of Nampa. This building is designed to not only meet the codes, but exceed it in several key aspects, most of which is the hazardous storage area in question. Through our design process, this area receives the highest degree of consideration and protection, which is appropriate for the commodities stored in it. These type of areas have been peer-reviewed by fire protection engineers on multiple facilities that we've done. I want to ensure that we understand these types of products stored in this area and are taking the appropriate steps to design it so that it's safe for the occupants and the general public, It is in our best interest as a design firm and Tractor Supply's best interest to see that it does not take shortcuts or try to skimp by. We have worked and are continuing to work closely in cooperation with Fire Marshal Ron Johnson and his team, who also understands these products and their risks. This area is not taken lightly, and the design has been thoughtful, but measured and appropriate. I respectfully request, based on the merits and evidence presented, that the Nampa City Council reject this appeal to the approved conditional use permit. With a little bit of time, two items that were brought up that I would like to touch on specifically. One was light pollution. So one of the requirements of this building, we are designing it to be a LEED certified building. And in order to meet that, one of the requirements is 0-foot candles at the property line. So we've done photometric studies, and the design intent is to not have any light spillover beyond the property border. Another one is sound. This is heavily mitigated by a tree screen that will absorb the majority of the sound and contain on site. Another one that is understated is the containment within the H3 area itself. So if there's a spill, containment is required to not only contain the spill, but also the fire protection waters that are used to extinguish the spill. Some commodities continue to ignite while floating, which was mentioned earlier. This is still meant to be contained within that containment, which is the criteria for which is outlined by code, has to be sealed, can't allow it to exit. So it is thoughtfully designed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else? Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Magdalena Flores, resident of 17777 Mud Springs Avenue, Nampa, Idaho. Just wanted to give a couple of thoughts. Wasn't planning to talk, actually. The first time I've actually even learned we're Nampa City Hall, but I have been living in Idaho my whole life for 27 years. Just kind of touching up on a couple of things. A lot of talk about code mitigation. We are hearing from two different sides, but I think what I would like everyone to kind of go home with today is kind of think about what people's purposes are. I understand 2004, 20 years ago, this place was earmarked for a industrial size, but 20 years ago, I think I had a completely different idea of what I wanted to do in life, and honestly, I always thought I wanted to move out of Idaho, but I've made this place my home and fell in love with it. Nice. I appreciate everyone being out and being able to open a conversation with everyone. But I also want to just kind of bring to light is it's easy to talk about code and everything, but the way that life always goes, things don't happen out that way. So if we could just bring to light the things. The traffic, I know obviously it's hard to pull onto just one thing, but just testimony. I've lived in this residence for about 4 years now. The amount of traffic and residency, everything that's gone up now is insane. Our commutes are a lot harder, and just from a standpoint, when you're going home, you want somewhere to go home to that you can relax and not have to worry about all this crazy noise. And now with more of these industrial places coming out to this areas, it's making it a lot harder for us to be able to go home to something like that. So I appreciate you guys listening to us, and hopefully we can kind of build more conversations from that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended? Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Scott Wheatley, 5401 Virginia Way, Brentwood, Tennessee. So I'm with Tractor Supply. I'm thankful to be here tonight. I'm thankful to be here in Nampa. Thankful that you guys are listening to us tonight. Thankful to hear everything that we're hearing from the residents, because we do want to be a great neighbor.
I consider myself blessed to work for Tractor Supply, and I don't say that lightly. It's a great company. I want to share with you guys just a few reasons why. One, growth and success. So we're a top 300 company on the Fortune 500. Our company continues to invest in growing, investing $2.5 billion in our business since 2020. Secondly, our culture is second to none, the best in retail, and I would put it up against just about any industry. And that's grounded or anchored by our mission and values, and it's evidenced in our people. And third-party accolades that we get, like being on a Great Place to Work list, multiple Forbes and Fortune lists of good workplaces, and Newsweek has called us one of America's most trusted and most responsible companies. So I'm thankful for that. And lastly, I'm thankful for the impact that we make on communities. So just in 2023 alone, we donated $16 million to the communities that we call home. Our 10 distribution centers, this will be our 11th here in Nampa, have extensive lists of the way that they make an impact in their community. They serve students through organizations like 4-H, FFA, direct sponsorship with schools. They serve, or our DCs serve service members through support of veterans groups, support for police departments, fire departments, and other organizations like that. We support animals, so from donations and involvement with animal shelters, with the Humane Society, rescue centers. We're involved in multiple events throughout the communities that we serve. Actually, a couple here already, we've got 12 stores in Idaho. So just in 2024 alone, we were sponsors of the GEM Boise County Fair, Black Canyon Stock Show and Rodeo, Treasure Valley Rodeo, Snake River Draft Horse Show, and the North Idaho State Fair. And actually, over the past 8 years, we've been involved with 70 different organizations and events right here in the state of Idaho. And in August of 2024, we were fortunate, we were blessed to be able to partner with Make-A-Wish and gift 8-year-old Kinsley of Post Falls with her own horse. So those are the kind of things that you're going to get with our company. I want to close with a couple comments. Mayor Justin Klein from Navarre, Ohio, which we built a DC there in 2023, said since opening the doors in Navarre in January, the Tractor DC is not only a great economic driver for our region, it's also a great neighbor, which supports many organizations. We're grateful for Tractor Supply selecting Navarre, and we look forward to a long and prosperous partnership. Got more there in your packet from Mayor Caleb Norris of Maumelle, Arkansas, and Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio, and Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders of Arkansas. But that's in your packet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening that had intended to testify? Yes.
Yes, my name is Howard Pennington. I live at 10123 Elvera Lane. And, this establishment is going to be fairly close to my home. I heard, 350 feet is the closest residence to this H3 room in this facility. Think about if you would want that 351 feet from your doorstep. I understand that it's consumer grade, it's 1 pound packages. All of these have been vetted, they're easily contained. But put yourself in that person's shoe. 351 feet. I've got a 7-year-old, I've got a 9-year-old. And tonight I heard that this building is in the city of Nampa's fire district. But what about all the residents that live in Castle Peak, Arbor, and down our lane? If we're in the Caldwell Fire District, it seems like there's a disconnect there on what would happen if there's a fire in this building. An explosion, a leak. What's the evacuation plan that I didn't hear anything about tonight? I wish that would have been addressed a little more. And the last point I want to touch on was something that I didn't hear was, when did Tractor Supply know that they were going to store more hazardous materials at this building than was required in city code? Was it something that they said, let's go ahead and get it approved, let's get this building approved, and then we'll just apply for a conditional use permit. We'll push it through. That's something that's in the back of my mind. I'm not opposed to growth, but Midland Boulevard is a disaster with traffic. It's all been brought up tonight. These are just some of the concerns that I had, and I just want you guys to think about those concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening or that would like to testify? Okay. Seeing none. So at this time, just for those of you that don't normally attend a public hearing, at this time we'll hear no further testimony from anyone here. The next step in our process is that we hear first from the original applicant, who has 5 minutes to come back and provide closing comments, and then the very last person will be the appellant, the gentleman that appealed the conditional use permit. Will have the last opportunity, and we'll have 5 minutes. And so go ahead and Brad Anderson, thank you. You'll be next to provide comments, and then the appellant actually has the last comment.
Okay, Mayor, council members, thank you for the time to respond here. So do I need to repeat my name again? Brad Anderson, 50 Security Drive, Jackson, Tennessee. Okay. So a couple of things I want to address. I know traffic is not a part of the conditional use permit, but I'll go ahead and address a couple of questions that were asked. So we do have two entrances to the site. One, the truck entrance comes from Ustick Road, and the employee entrance is on Midland. We do have one entrance in Maumelle. It's a different situation there, a different site. We have a much smaller, we only had one location to bring in both drives. So our connection to the main right-of-way there was one drive, and then we split after we went onto the site. So on this particular site, there's just not enough room to do that, so we had to put them on two separate ends of the site. And by far, the truck traffic is better coming from Ustick. As far as the drivers, most of the drivers will be the same drivers coming to the site each time to pick up a load and take it away. So they're likely to come up Northside Boulevard, which is the entrance before you get to the marketplace. They're not going to typically go through the marketplace once they learn that's not where they want to go. It's going to be easier to go up Northside Boulevard. So that's once the drivers get the area, that's where they'll come from. Back to the conditional use permit. So we thoroughly addressed all the safety measures. We're providing a safe building, and as Kyle had mentioned, we're very conscious about that to make sure we do the right thing. This is a type 2 building, which is non-combustible, so it's not like a residential home that's built of wood, and it will be consumed by the fire. This is a non-combustible building, steel and concrete. So the fire protection that is going to be working this building is going to extinguish whatever happens inside the building, not the building itself. We do have smoke and heat detection both in the building, so we have both heat and smoke detection. As far as when we filed the conditional use permit, that's just part of the approval process, the permitting process we're doing for the building. So we actually submitted the conditional use permit in December, I believe, 1st of December. And we just recently submitted all the other drawings for building permit review. So we actually submitted this long before we submitted the drawings for building permit review. Response plan, that's come up several times. So Tractor Supply does have a safety response plan. They have it for every DC facility they have that they operate. They basically have a response plan for their employees and anybody that's located in the building at the time. And part of that response plan is to notify public officials should something happen, should an event happen. And then they pass that on to the public officials to decide how they want to notify or how they want to mitigate or how they want to handle public response. That's not our position to handle public response. We notify them of whatever's going on in the facility and they take it from there. Lastly, there's a lot of mention about codes and how things go. So the codes, the International Building Code, the International Fire Code is what governs what we do. They're extensive studies, extensive testing, and a lot of different things, years of experience in building these type of facilities, as well as any other type of facility. And then from that, you've got a committee of multiple people from different backgrounds that will determine what goes into the code, how this code is going to govern what we do. So that's our boundaries, and that's what we have to respond to and what we live with. The same as you are governing this community, and the police officers are enforcing what you're governing. The same as with us with the codes. The codes is what enforces or what governs us and what the enforcement for us. So that's what we have to abide by. And the Fire Marshal Johnson, that's what he has to reference and abide by as well. So the code is a substantial document that our industry goes by. So I think I've addressed most of the questions that came up. So if you have any additional questions, I'd be glad to address those as well.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions? Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
The alarms, are they audible inside and outside the facility?
Inside the facility. Are they outside as well? I think they're just inside the facility. Yeah.
So again, that's just a question, maybe if the neighbors were concerned about something happening at the facility, that they would be alerted if it was an audible alarm on the outside, like a school has. But in your case, it's not required then?
It's not required, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the opportunity for Mr. Emil Antone to come forward and provide closing remarks.
Thank you. Emil Antoine, 18217 Troutman Avenue. Mayor and City Council. First of all, I want to thank you for your careful questioning of everybody that's been here tonight, the presenters. And I want to thank the applicant for their concessions regarding the mitigation efforts. We've had a lot of people talk about mitigation of this project. I think fittingly so. But I think procedurally, this thing is a rat's nest. The meeting notice is flawed. Staff indicated that, it doesn't hurt anybody if it's called harmful or hazardous. And there's nothing in the code that requires him to name it one thing or another. But in 1019.3, it says flammable liquids, class 1 and class 2. The applicant has talked about antifreeze and so on. Well, class 1 materials are ether, petroleum ether, acetone, benzene, ethyl alcohol, gasoline, turpentine. And these things are going to be stacked in that warehouse, 40 feet high, on pallet racks. And there's going to be forklifts running around inside there. There's bound to be a forklift accident that hits the pressurized container and material comes out. Envision for a moment a forklift operator hitting one of those pallets full of this material, backing up and all crashing to the floor. So there is a possibility of accidents. Accidents do happen. But in the planning phase, there's a possibility to correct what we're doing. Unlike an accident inside the warehouse, once that happens, then then human life is at risk. I'm asking you to appeal, that the appeal be approved and the commission's approval overturned. And the reason for that is that within the code, under the conditional use permit conditions, there is traffic and those other things that have been mentioned here that needs to be re-examined in terms of what roadways are available, how the trucks are going to get in and out of there, and the additional traffic by employees. We're not here to talk about mitigation efforts. That's not what the appeal was about. And I think that the record is strong enough to bear reconsideration of what's being done. this hazardous material isn't going to be confined to the H3 storage area. It has to be taken off at trucks. It'll probably be staged somewhere in the unprotected warehouse, then loaded in some kind of order to the H3 area. And as orders are received from the retail stores, it's going to be taken out of that area. It's going to be staged in the unprotected warehouse before it's loaded on trucks, because they have to put it on the trucks in the order that it's delivered at the stores. So it's not going to immediately go on the trucks and out of the warehouse. It's going to be sitting around. The applicant states that and I've heard other testimony tonight, that the public could be protected by an 8-inch concrete wall. Well, how about the roof and other unprotected areas? The fact is, it hasn't been designed to withstand what can happen with this huge amount of material. We're not talking about a Lowe's department store that has, 55 gallons of it. We're talking about 39,000 gallons. So I think, we need to re-examine this. And the way to get there is to approve the appeal and let it go back through the planning process. Tractor Supply mentioned their $14 million contributions. That's a lot of money, and we appreciate that. It's on a $14 billion company, so that's 0.1%. They're just like any other company, and I don't know if they're bad or good. They sound good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, council, do you have any questions?
I have one of Ron Johnson. Just
Okay.
one, yes. Ron, in my notes, I remember you saying something about the fire response, that they're in the Nampa impact area, but they would be controlled or responded by Caldwell Fire. Am I wrong in that?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Rodriguez, so the Tractor Supply building is in Nampa Fire District response area. It's the subdivision on the west side of Midland that's in Caldwell Fire District response area.
Okay.
But we do work together on joint responses on those lines and regularly run mutual code to help each other out.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so council, if we don't, you have another question? Okay.
Just to follow up on that, I was going to ask the same question. Canyon County Dispatch, you might be dispatched to a fire on that line anyway. Same time Caldwell's coming, you might be coming from the other direction, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Councilman Haverfield, yes, that does happen, where when it's on the line, they sometimes dispatch both, or they'll dispatch us. We tell them it's Caldwell, but we keep going, and because chances are they're going to request that we continue anyways. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
One more. In regard to the testimony we heard about other DCs having a one-way in, one-way out, is that recommended, or is it recommended that we keep the two-way in, two-way out for emergency service reasons? I just am throwing that out there just to get a gauge. I can imagine if a fire or something happened and there's semis blocking all the way up, it'd be difficult to get in just in a single entrance or exit.
That's a great question, Councilmember Griffin. By code, as soon as a building exceeds 124,000 square feet in area, they have to have two entrances. So in this case, they could not drop down to just one.
Thank you.
Okay, council, if we don't have any further questions for the applicant or the appellant, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So this is an opportunity for council to discuss the action that they are going to recommend taking, and then followed by a motion. So council, do you have any comments?
Mayor, I've got a question for Rodney. Let's take the CUP aside and just look at the zoning itself. So this is light industrial. Without the CUP, would that light industrial still allow for the materials that we're talking about, just at a smaller quantity?
Yes, that's the
So
simple answer.
Thank you. So should this, hypothetically, it gets denied and it just goes to light industrial, they can still do everything that they plan to do, it's just at a smaller quantity?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then other question, I just noticed when you put in addresses, they all pretty much reside in Caldwell. Not that I'm discrediting that, I know that they're all very close to this location. I'm just wondering, with this being light industrial, did the city of Caldwell know that this was zoned light industrial when they approved and planned these neighborhoods abutting to light industrial?
Mayor and council, I just probably need to get a little more clarity on that. So the light industrial, as I stated before, was happened in 2001 and 2002. And at that time, City of Caldwell was notified. They were aware of that going in. However, when several people who testified tonight asked about the 2004 date and were confused about that, that's our future land use map comprehensive plan stating that in 2004, we would like this area to go to industrial. That's our required by state code that we identify that early on so that other cities can plan for that. The Caldwell impact area was not at this point, and a lot of these subdivisions were not built yet, and so they came in knowing that that was the designation on the future land use map of industrial.
Thanks, Rodney.
Mayor?
Yes.
On the same thought process of the CUP specific, that these materials would be allowed, it's the amount that's up for question. What is the difference between the amount that they proposed and the amount allowable?
Significant. Let me...
I'm liking these one-word responses. They're getting pretty good.
I don't have the list of their proposed quantities, but they're significant. These quantities are pretty small, and it should be this one. So 50 gallons or more of unstable liquids is just outright permitted by code. Again, this is not saying that they're asking for a variance. This is saying anytime they require more than this, there's I'm looking to our attorney again on this one, but there's some expectation of approval with a conditional use permit. You're saying, yes, we think this is an approvable scenario with conditions. If there's the appropriate conditions then to mitigate concerns, then we think this is the appropriate thing to go here, this land use. I'm looking to our attorney for confirmation of that.
That's in conformance with my understanding of the law.
So again, 50 gallons of combustible liquids is just outright approved. You won't have to do anything, but anything beyond that, anything above that would require a conditional use permit. I don't know the exact amounts, but they're significant compared to this.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
Mayor, question for probably Daniel. I'm just going through my notes here, and there was a question, I believe it was Craig, that asked about the groundwater wells and water supply going down. I'm not sure if that got answered. Could you speak to that?
Mayor, Councilman Jangila, the city, as we grow and expand and have additional users connect to our water systems, we are planning for that and continually evaluate the system and the needs for new wells, new sources to maintain the systems and the levels, the pressures and flows that we have. So that, while yes, that is true that as more things connect, you know, there have impacts on the system. However, we are mitigating that through system expansion, new wells, those types of things that we are evaluating continuously as developments go in.
Thank you. So should there be any sort of a spill or anything of that nature, would it pollute their water, or is there a risk there?
So with the containment requirements that they have, that's all required to be contained and not leak into the groundwater. Ultimately, those rules are there in the fire code and the building code. If there were some type of spill that made it into the groundwater through all the protections that they'll put in. DEQ has jurisdiction at that point, and they go through the process to take care of the mitigations and clean that up and all of that type of stuff, though I haven't seen something of this nature have that type of a spill before.
Thanks, Daniel.
I have one more question, Mayor. Thank you. So Trooper Bodine, and thank you for your service, sir. There you are. Talked about traffic. Would you please advise the community here that we, the city of Nampa, only go to, I believe, USTIC, and the responsibility beyond our is Nampa Highway, no, not Nampa Highway, it's Caldwell Highway District, isn't it?
So, Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, this is right on the boundary of our jurisdiction.
Right.
And so we will be.
Comment, though, I want to make sure we don't confuse the issue. This hearing has nothing to do with traffic.
Right.
This is not a traffic, that was through the land use.
Right.
This is about the chemicals. So I'd like to defer to legal and Rodney on this. Am I correct? We could let you keep talking, but that's not what this is about.
No, I just wanted
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
We were just discussing that. The topics around transportation or traffic that are associated with a conditional use permit have to be tied back to the reason for the conditional use permit. It can't be about the land use in general. It has to be related to those materials. So we could have a conversation about traffic and transportation if it related only to those materials being stored in that building.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So,
I get it, Mayor. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I move to deny the appeal and affirm the decision to approve the conditional use permit for above-ground storage of flammable, combustible, and/or corrosive liquids materials in excess of the quantities allowed by bulk standards identified in Code 1019 3.B on 116 acres in the IL Light Industrial Zoning District, parcels R3440, let's see, 3436, 10, 1000, R3436, 1011, R3436, 10 200, R3436, 10 13AO, R3236, 10 4AO, R3436, 301, 1000, R3436, 101, 300, R3436, R01, 400, and a portion of parcel 3436, 100, 000 in the southwest quarter of section 33, and
Quickly reading off of that, go ahead and read. I think you covered them. I want to pause with legal because it is really easy to miss a zero there. Can we leave it to what is bolded, that you're moving to deny the appeal and affirm the decision to approve the conditional use permit for the above-ground storage of flammable, combustible, and/or corrosive liquids materials in excess of the quantities allowed by the bulk standards on this particular request? Is that correct?
that's correct. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yes.
Can we skip all those numbers?
You can, and by reference, just states, as identified to the properties subject to this appeal, and just by reference to that. So if we want to restate the motion, please reread it through the bolded language, and I think once it begins to describe the parcels, say applicable to the parcels subject to this appeal, and that should be sufficient.
Okay, so just what I said, and then you can say applicable to the parcels. I think, can it be
Excellent
so
training for us.
moved?
All right. So I move to deny the appeal and affirm the decision to approve the conditional use permit for the above-ground storage of flammable, combustible, and/or corrosive liquids materials in excess of the quantities allowed by the bulk standards identified in Code 1019 3.B on 116 acres in the IL Light Industrial Zoning District as listed parcels on our screen and in our packet. And
And all proposed conditions,
and all the proposed conditions,
and to adopt the proposed findings of fact.
and to adopt the proposed conditions, and to adopt the proposed findings of fact.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
No.
Jingula.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So that is the end of that particular public hearing. I think because we have been sitting here for about 2.5 hours, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back and reconvene for the next 2 public hearings.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we're going to get ready to go. Can we go ahead and start, get ready to start our meeting, please? Okay, so we are going to get ready to go. We're going back to public hearing 1-1. This is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to light industrial zoning district and a potential development agreement for parcel number R229280000, I think. It's 0.67 acres at 4717 Airport Road and abutting right-of-way on Happy Valley Road, including the right-of-way at the intersection of Happy Valley and Airport Road. For Chris Stoddard, representing Sun Peak Development, LLC, the original concept is to continue existing business as playground equipment contractor in an industrial zoned location within the city of Nampa. Is our applicant here this evening? Good evening. Thank you for sharing your name and address.
I thought I had long nights as a nurse, but this is interesting.
Could you do me a favor? Pull that mic just a little bit closer. Yeah,
Thank
and then
you.
speak right into it. Thank you.
Well, my name's Jamie Stoddard. I'm here representing my father, Curtis Stoddard, in Sun Peak. We originally bought this property, and it was an existing business, and we were told by the county that we either needed to turn residential or zone in, and so because we are a business who just stores and sells playground equipment, we don't have customers arriving to our property, just our employees, and so we would like to annex into the city.
Wonderful. Okay, so in looking to zone it in the light industrial.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions at this time? Okay, so as you know, we will go through our process. We'll have staff do a report, we'll do public hearing, then we'll have you come back.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, Rodney.
Hi. For the record, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. This should be a much more simple one, pretty straightforward here. IL zoning is what's being requested. They're not proposing to change their land use at all, and as she said, it's a playground equipment contractor, and they want to zone it IL. The comprehensive plan designates this area as industrial. To the north is a county single-family residence and Tackett's wild game processing business. To the east is county. It's unclear the land use. Google Maps lists as Williams Enterprises. I'll zoom in a little bit here. To the south is county single-family residence, and to the west is city IL zoning industrial subdivision for future industrial uses. There are utilities in the area and available to the site, but they are currently not proposing to utilize those. The Nampa Planning and Zoning recommended approval with the proposed findings and conditions. And so with an analysis of the comp plan and the city code, staff can recommend approval as well. Annexation and zoning, I want to be a little bit clear here. The language we've used in the past to interpret Idaho State Code, Idaho Code is what we use for annexation. And we've used some criteria in the past just kind of interpreting that annexation language. Idaho, the exact code is not listed in our City of Nampa code. So we just are referencing that code. But we've interpreted these a little bit different, and so I'm going to go through those in just a little bit as we go through findings. And we have 4 findings instead of 3 findings based on a recent update to our annexation code and state code. And then here's our zoning code findings. Again, the IL zone is meant for industrial uses. Here's the spatial and bulk requirements for structures, accessory and principal structures. Correspondence The fire district said that upon annexation, the existing business at this address shall apply for a certificate of occupancy with the City of Nampa Building Department, and then we'll review all of their project at that time. Engineering Division gave their comments as well and listed 5 standard conditions, but actually they're not so standard. One of those is the 25-foot chamfer. Number 5 is a little bit unique, so I've got a diagram of that. So they will be annexing the red, and the green is what they are dedicating to the city with the chamfer, the 25-foot chamfer at the corner for better turn radius. I think it's in the interests of the city to annex properties that are nearby and utilizing our roads, and eventually we'll use our services beyond the roads. Here's the proposed conditions of approval based on the correspondence we received. Here are the findings of fact. So again, I just kind of want to slow it down for just a little bit. The first one is the property proposed for annexation falls under the annexation criteria outlined in Idaho Code because the property owner has given consent to annex the property as stated above. We have an affidavit of legal interest on the application. The next one is the property proposed for annexation falls under the annexation criteria outlined in Idaho Code because it is contiguous to the city limits to the west. And then the Nampa Comprehensive Plan, the proposed annexation is available for annexation because it is located within the current Nampa area of impact boundary as shown on the future land use map published in the Nampa 2040 Comprehensive Plan and matches the designation shown in the future land use map. And then the final one for annexation is that the proposed annexation for the parcel complies with the established memorandum of understanding currently in place between the City of Nampa and Nampa Highway District. So again, that last one is a conditional one. When applicable for annexation of roadways, all portions of highways lying partially or wholly to be annexed with a contiguous parcel unless by express agreement with Highway Maintenance District indicates otherwise. So we've got that agreement already in place. And then these are the zoning criteria. And I don't need to spend a ton of time, but the proposed map would be in harmony with the city's currently adopted comprehensive plan and map, because IL zoning is permitted in industrial. These are the other findings for zoning. It's compatible because compatibility is defined in the comprehensive plan as the visual relationship between adjacent, this is actually one finding. The conclusion is at the end, the second column there. The proposed annexation and map amendment is compatible with adjoining districts because it establishes IL zoning that is the same as or compatible with immediately adjoining districts because the zoning district is permitted under the comp plan future land use map designation of industrial, and the property to the west is IL zoned. And I think this is the last one. Yeah. The proposed annexation and map amendment is in the public interest and reasonably necessary because it provides an opportunity for economic development and has city services and utilities available in the area. The comprehensive plan supports the use. The use is already existing and in demand, and no changes to traffic is anticipated. Right-of-way dedication will ensure the road meets future demands. So again, here are the two proposed motions or potential motions, and I would just point out that the language in that first motion states with the proposed conditions and formal findings as proposed in this presentation. So it's just it was altered from your staff report. And that's all I have.
Mayor, question?
Yes.
Well and septic's going to remain intact at this point in time?
They're not requesting a connection to utilities at this time.
Are there any other questions? I guess in my mind, and I'm sorry, this may be in our staff report, Is there a time that they would be required with the sidewalk? I know that's right at a corner, and so what is that requirement?
I'm going to turn to Daniel for that one.
Mayor, so if they were to redevelop the site or put a new structure on the site at that point, they would likely be required to put in a sidewalk, unless we came to council for a deferral if it was something that didn't make sense at the time. But that's the triggers that we would have to place a sidewalk at that location.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rodney. So this is a public hearing, and
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up in advance.
okay, is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular public hearing? Seeing no one, this is an opportunity for our applicant to come back and provide any closing remarks. Do you have any remarks or anything you'd like to share? No? Okay.
Mayor,
Thank you. Yes.
I move to close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. What is the will of council?
Mayor,
Yes? Oh,
your neighbor does exceptional meat processing, by the way. I love Tackett's.
Rodney, would you put the motion back up on our screen? Whoever,
read
he said it's different than in the staff report. He just shared that, and I want to make sure we read the one that he had on the screen. Somehow it went away. The end of it, he said just a minute ago, is different than in the staff report.
Sorry, Mayor, for some reason, I'm not able to share it.
Well, how is your motion on the screen different? Excuse me, if Councilman Griffin would like to make a motion, thank you,
Thank you.
just to make sure we do it correctly.
Mayor, I move to approve the annexation and zoning to IL Light Industrial Zoning District and potential development agreement for parcel number R229280000 at 0.67 acres at 4717 Airport Road for Curtis Stoddard, representing Sun Peak Development LLC, annexation -00300-2024 with the proposed conditions and formal findings as proposed in this presentation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Jingula?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Jamie, thank you for being here tonight. You can tell your dad you did such an awesome job. We just all agreed. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to 1-2. This is our last public hearing this evening. This is an action item. It's a comprehensive plan map amendment from residential mixed use to medium density residential land use designation for all parcels within the area north of Alma Lane, south of Locust Lane, east of Southwest Boulevard, Southside Boulevard, west of Happy Valley Road, excluding the area in the northwest corner, which is zoned BC, which is community business, and the low-density residential area designated for the existing county subdivision. This is approximately 266.6 acres for Trilogy Development, representing Endurance Holdings. The original concept is to change the land use designation to better reflect the currently approved use of a large portion of the site and to allow for development of the area as a cohesive medium-density residential neighborhood. Is our applicant here this evening? Good evening. Thank you for coming forward and giving us your name and address.
Thank you. Can I have the controller for the PowerPoint? Thank you very much. Kelly Black, Bailey Engineering, 1119 East State Street, Eagle, Idaho, representing Trilogy Development. We are requesting a comprehensive plan amendment approval. The subject area is north of Alma Lane, east of Southside Boulevard, south of Locust Lane, and west of Happy Valley Road, excluding the northwest corner, which is zoned commercial business, and the low-density residential county subdivision on the east. We are requesting an amendment to designate this area here in purple as medium-density residential. Can you go to the next slide for me? Thank you. The future land use map has this area designated as residential mixed use. It is surrounded by medium-density residential to the north and the west, with residential mixed use on the south and the east. Next slide. The residential mixed use and the medium-density residential designations have the same density range of 2.5 to 8 dwelling units per acre. The primary difference between these designations are that the residential mixed-use designation has a neighborhood commercial requirement. Specifically, the RMU designation is required to have at least 5% commercial. Next slide. The medium-density residential designation is a good fit for this area for several reasons. First, the New York Landing subdivision is a 136-acre subdivision that is currently under construction in this area and is zoned RS 8.5, which is a medium-density residential district. Next slide. Second, the remaining parcels in this area are not suited for commercial uses. In particular, the parcels located along the western boundary of the New York Landing subdivision only have access through that subdivision. The remaining parcels in this area are mostly county residential, with one city residential subdivision and a flag lot that is best suited as residential. Next slide. Considering that a significant portion of this area is already being developed as medium-density residential, and much of the remaining land is unsuitable for commercial, amending the future land use map to designate this area as medium-density residential would better align with the planned development. That is all I have. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Kelly. Questions? Yes.
Yes, Mayor. So can we go back to the map that shows the area that's, there we go. So, and this may be something for staff to answer, but I guess I'm a little confused in asking for a comp plan change on property that is beyond who you're representing.
Understood. When we spoke to the city staff initially, we came in just talking about the New York Landing subdivision and the parcels to the west, and it was recommended by city staff that we request to include all the parcels, as they felt that that was a better alignment with what was happening. So that is why we included them in the request.
So then, is this move of changing the zone or the comp plan to then do away with the commercial requirement that was placed on New York Landing?
Correct.
So it's a step, so New York Landing was approved, and it was approved to have the percentage of commercial. Time's gone by, life's changed, and so we want to get rid of that, so this is our step to get rid of it?
Actually, New York Landing subdivision was approved as just a residential subdivision, RS 8.5, without a commercial component. It is the parcels to the west that are not a part of the city yet and have not been zoned that have that RMU designation that require the commercial be 5% of that area, the western parcels that you see here on the screen. Mm-hmm. And those parcels don't have access from anywhere except for the New York Landing subdivision.
Okay, so these are parcels that are wanting to potentially add to the
Yes.
New York Landing project?
Correct.
Okay, and so this is the steps to go through?
Yes, it was recommended by staff that we come through with the comprehensive plan amendment first. We could have come in with the annexation preliminary plat application at the same time, but we wanted to just take it a step at a time.
Okay, so, yeah, so there was the ambiguities as to, for me anyways, the changes going on. I apologize, I'm quickly looking down my list to see if there's other questions for you. The others would be for staff. Let's see, okay, I'll hold
Yes.
mine for staff. Thanks, Mayor.
Yes.
The west parcel and the proposed remaining business commercial is not part of the New York Landing subdivision, correct?
Correct.
But they are planned for future plat, or they have yet to be annexed and yet to be planned for and platted?
The west parcels have yet to be annexed and yet to be applied for. They're county parcels at this time.
But all these parcels are owned by the same group, and it's just going to be an expansion later on?
New York Landing subdivision is already zoned and in process and is owned by the same group as the ownership of the west parcels that you see here.
And the business commercial?
Business commercial is a different owner.
And that is not part of tonight's discussion?
Correct.
That's a separate parcel, correct, Rodney? Correct, not part of tonight's discussion. This is only the New York Landing parcel and the west parcel that are part of this discussion tonight. I want to say northwest corner community mixed use, that's the BC, not part of today's discussion.
So that's just remaining the same because it's not being discussed tonight, and the rest is, okay.
Are there any other questions? We'll have you back.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's see, who do we have here? Doug Critchfield.
Mayor, Council, Doug Critchfield, Principal Planner over Long Range Planning. I'll just go through this a little bit. This is the current status of this area. The Claiborne property that Council Member Griffin was referring to has been zoned BC. It is also in a community mixed use, and it's not under consideration. The New York Landing subdivision is in the RS 8.5, and you can see these other parcels. There's a parcel to the north that's also annexed into the city at RS 8.5. The rest are county parcels. So the proposed change from residential mixed use, the staff felt that this area, including the New York Landing and also the area to the north, would remain largely in residential. There wasn't much chance of this going to commercial because of the way that it's laid out, the size of the lots, and the location. Excuse me. I'll move on to the next one. So the area that's changing does not also include this low-density residential area, again, because of the lot configuration on that side. So if you look at the New York Landing subdivision by itself, it does not include those parcels to the west, and it does follow the canal, the New York Canal. That New York Canal has a high embankment, close to 20 feet. And because of that, these lots to the west really are not a great location for commercial properties because they're hidden from the primary streets that go through that area. They are better suited as a residential area. The lot on the corner, the Claiborne property on the corner, is more suited and it's zoned appropriately for that purpose. In terms of the regulations, there's really no findings in state code in terms of the comprehensive plan other than to say that it's the Planning and Zoning Commissions at will. They can change the comprehensive plan and they can make those changes from time to time, and our code requires that the City Council approve those changes. So this is coming as a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. When we put this out for review to the different agencies, the letters that we received indicated no comment, and we had no conditions that were given by any of these agencies or departments. So the findings really have to do with the reasoning behind this change and why staff made that recommendation. Obviously, the first finding is that these are mandated by state. The changes are mandated to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission. The second is that the difference between the residential mixed use and the medium density residential is that the densities remain the same. So the number of units that can be built remains the same. It's just the commercial, 5 to 50% of that gross area could be in commercial development, and that removes that requirement for that commercial development. for the reasons that I stated earlier about lot sizes and location. Finding number 3, it talks about the New York Canal, and again, the reasons why this is not a great location for commercial development. Finding number 4 reiterates what staff recommends this based, again, on the lot configuration, and the development is, with exception of that 13-acre flag lot, are mostly smaller lots. And then finding number 5 is the visibility issue that we had mentioned before. And these findings are in your staff report. The Planning and Zoning Commission indicated that they felt it was in the public interest to provide continuity in the development types in this area. That's also supported by the comprehensive plan. The land uses will match the development in the area and the surrounding area, with the exception of the commercial lot on the Claiborne property, which is separated again by the canal. So the staff recommended, based on that analysis, that this move forward to the City Council for approval. And I have before you the potential motions, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Mayor?
Yes.
So Doug, I guess I'm still a little confused. Is the New York Landing plat changing from its original approval?
No, this is not changing the plat. So.
Okay, but in your comments there, it was to update and allow the New York Landing to finish its work, that this comp plan change is necessary for the New York Landing to complete its work.
The west parcel.
So the New York Landing would have to annex these parcels and bring in a plat in order to be able to complete that project. If this were to remain as residential mixed use, and they were to come in with that plat, they would at least 5% would have to be commercial. So this just doesn't bode well for a commercial development in this area.
Okay, so does this change allow for a density change to the New York Landing plat?
No, Mayor Kling and Councilmember Bills, the density remains the same between the two land use designations. So it doesn't affect the zoning that's currently in place for New York Landing, because they are annexed into the city. This is an annexation map here. And so they are annexed in at RS 8.5. These two parcels to the west have not been annexed in yet, but the density within the comprehensive plan would be identical to the land use designation over the current New York Landing subdivision.
So would that be to the RS 8.5, or is that allowed to get an RS 4?
It could go whatever it is that they propose to bring in. It could be an RS 4 through RS 8.5.
So could they do that without us approving this change?
What would be different about that would be that they would have to provide, in the current land use designation, they would have to provide commercial as part of that plat. By making this change to medium density residential, they no longer have to provide commercial.
So is there a problem if council so chose to defer this decision till next week after the public hearing? I mean, at the end of the same public hearing. My concern, and I don't want to be out of bounds, but there's a great deal of acreage coming forward south of Alma. And I guess I'm a little confused on these changes and what the zoning is going to be applied and what's going to be allowed. If we're moving from 8.5 to RS4, it seems like we need to see the whole picture.
Yeah, so Mayor and Councilmember Bills, this doesn't provide entitlements for any annexation or zoning. All this does is provide the land use designation, that umbrella, if you will, and then the applicant, whoever owns the parcels there, would have to come in and apply for annexation and the appropriate zoning, and they would bring that to you at that time.
But it seems, based on what we've experienced the last 2 to 4 weeks, is that we've seen the applications to change from RS 8.5 to the RS 6 and RS 4. And this seems like this is paving the way to get there. And this project was approved with what zone?
So, Councilmember Bills, the zoning, the current zoning for the New York Landing subdivision is RS 8.5. This is not changing the capacity of the applicants for these west parcels, these enclave parcels, county parcels. It doesn't change their capacity to apply for RS zoning. All it does is, making this change, all it does is remove the requirement that they have commercial property.
Could we go back to the slides that reflected, because there were two slides previously that showed the, and I think it was in the applicants,
Oh, okay,
what
sorry.
they were bringing forward. There were two slides that showed the area that is not in the subdivision. And then it also showed that the zoning would not, the comprehensive plan residential mixed use to medium density residential, it does not change the density and those two. The only thing that changes is the required commercial. That's the only thing that changes, is the required commercial between on the comprehensive map, between residential and medium density. So it was just on a slide, and it would be nice to be able to look at that slide again. Can we get there?
Mayor, I'm sorry, which slide are you referring to?
It was her second page.
Her
On
slides,
her presentation, it had community or
residential,
and
mixed
medium
use.
density, and it said 2 to 8.5 or 2.5 to 8.5. 5% commercial, no commercial.
I'd like to look at those because, and then also that one picture that shows what we're talking about. That's what I was gathering.
So, Mayor,
Yeah, I don't know why.
I have a question while they're figuring that out.
Okay, while we're looking for it, Councilman Griffin?
Was this project, when it was approved under residential mixed use or medium density?
Medium density.
It was medium density?
Yeah.
And now it's currently residential mixed?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilman, yeah, that's correct. So in the past, we didn't have this area designated as residential mixed use. Just as a reminder, and maybe to Councilman Bill's questions there, and I think maybe just to reemphasize what the mayor has said, the residential mixed use is the medium density residential densities. So all of the same zones that could be applied for in the medium density residential, RS4, RS6, RS7, and RS 8.5 can all be requested in the mixed use, residential mixed use designations. They're the exact same. The only difference is the commercial that changes.
So my question then is, and I think you just answered it, when they were approved, they were medium density, they didn't have that commercial aspect. Why does this plat not show any commercial in it?
Because because it was approved under medium density residential.
Medium density doesn't require commercial.
That's what I understand. So I'm just trying to figure out the timeline, because I see an application in front of us that says it's residential mixed use currently with a full plat showing nothing of the sort because there's no commercial into it. So when it was annexed and when it was approved and when the development agreement was set, it was medium density. They didn't have to put in any commercial.
That's correct.
At some point, the map changed to residential mixed use after their plat had been set, their development agreement was in place, so they didn't have the requirement to put the commercial in. But now, a property that I'm assuming they were planning for to just add some more houses into it is now required to have commercial in it because of the change over the timeline of however many decades.
That's correct.
Okay. So and the reason I wanted to show this was for it's blinking like crazy right here. Yeah, it's not showing on the big screen, so.
2.5 to 8.
Right, it is, and I just wanted to clarify with staff that Kelly's slide was a correct slide, just to reaffirm that there is no change in density, and so that's what we've shared. That I'm forgetting the landing subdivision, that this decision does not impact or give them permission to change what they've already got permission to do, which is 8.5. They have to continue to build it out in the same as what's already been approved. And that the property to the west, that west parcel, does not have access to commercial. Therefore, this allows them to develop that, and I think what we're hearing is we prefer that there be an alignment in zoning, but that's not what we're here for tonight. So,
A follow-up then, Mayor, do we have to receive the property owner's approval? Why wouldn't we just tack in that community mixed use in the northwest corner and make all of this residential mixed use, or medium density all at one time? Do we have to have the approval of all these different landowners?
Mayor, that's what Preston and I were discussing. And I guess I'll turn the time to you.
Yes, this is a great question. What you're doing right now is a legislative act. So I'll use the hat reference again and again. You got a legislative hat on right now. It's not a quasi-judicial decision where you're wearing those robes, so to speak. This is policy-driven. It can be by an individual. It can also be initiated by this body. So it is legislative, if that answers your question.
It does. My question is now, why aren't we just tacking on that northwest corner and making it?
Yeah.
Why are we just making this one little parcel keep the 5%, but we're going to give different people a different opportunity?
Mayor, I think I can respond to that. You could put a future land use designation of medium density all over that. However, you've got an existing zoning on that property. So they are entitled, regardless of what you do with the future land use map, they are entitled to the uses that they were approved for. That is the property that had the storage units that were proposed by Linda Claiborne and the proposed restaurant on Locust Lane. And so that went through that process for annexation and zoning with an entitlement and a development agreement.
yes, that's why, and you weren't on council at the time, but that is something that came before us, that we approved that land use that she is working on developing at this time. So she has an entitlement that we cannot take away. The rest of this, as stated, is not conducive to commercial development, but that corner is. And so, yeah.
So this is the only area that we're changing, correct? Because on page 48 of our packet, it shows going well south of Alma, there's a lot of parcels that we're now changing. It shows as residential mixed use. That's not a factor in this. This is all that we're looking to change to medium. Nothing south of Alma is changing, and that northwest corner is not changing. Thank you.
The purple area on the slide.
Well, it's got purple on this slide too, but it's a different page in the packet. So.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
We keep throwing around 8.5, but it could technically, if we do approve this, it could be RS4 to 8.5, right?
So, Mayor and Councilmember Jangula, it would have the same density range of 2.5 to 8 dwelling units per acre. What that means, which is the same density that it has now, what that means is that when they apply to annex those parcels, they can also ask for a zoning designation, and that could be RS4, RS6, RS7, or RS 8.5.
So the homes that are already developed in this subdivision, what are those currently?
Those are RS 8.5.
The homes that are already built there are?
Yes. That's under that zoning designation.
So for them to continue, could we put in, if we were to approve it, could we put in a condition that it remain 8.5 to keep the fluidity between the new section and what's already developed?
Yeah, thank you, Council Member. So it's not necessary. They would have to apply for a zoning change if they wanted to go to an RS4 They have entitlements for an RS 8.5, and that has limitations about a minimum and a maximum lot size. Each one of those designations do. If they want to go to smaller lot sizes, they would have to come before the city council and ask for a rezone of that area.
Mayor?
Thank you.
I just want to make sure this is very clear. This has to come back before this body at annexation for zoning. So that's the appropriate time for you to determine what zoning is appropriate. It's not at this time, except in the relation to the future land use map designations.
Thank you.
So this is a little bit like the hearing 2 hearings ago that we're here for a very specific reason. This is not an annexation, this is not a rezone, this is a future land use map changing from residential mixed use to mixed use development, medium density.
Yes.
And the range of density from 2.5 to 8 is the same in both. The only difference is that the residential mixed use requires 5% commercial, and what they're asking is that we change over so that that is not required. The commercial is not required because there is no access point for commercial and you also have your commercial, I forget it, that's a BC or whatever that is, right there on the corner, already designated at the corner there of Happy Valley and Locust Lane. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so are there any other questions for Doug? Thank you. Do you have anything else to share with us? Are we good? Okay, thank you. So this is a public hearing and?
Madam Mayor, we do not have any advanced signups.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular matter this evening? I am not seeing. And the 2 gentlemen in the back, you don't want to testify this evening? Nope? Okay. So with that, our applicant has an opportunity to make closing comments. Do you have anything you'd like to share before we close?
Mayor?
Nope. Do we have any questions for our applicant? Okay.
Please reiterate for me why it is impossible for commercial to go into that portion. I heard access. It is 100% impossible for commercial to go into that space.
Correct, primarily due to access, because on the south side of those western parcels, that's New York Landing subdivision that's already been annexed and zoned and is in development. And then to the east of those western parcels, it is also New York Landing subdivision annexed and zoned and being developed. And then to the north and the west of that parcel is the New York Landing Canal, or the New York Canal, apologies, and then the Reidenbach Canal, which again, as Doug said, has 20-foot embankments. It's not accessible. And then we do have the Claiborne property on that corner that does have that business commercial designation.
So,
yes.
Mayor and maybe staff, maybe yourself. So when the New York Landing was approved, why wasn't 5% put in commercial?
When New York Landing subdivision was approved, it's my understanding that the future land use map had that area designated as medium density residential. So it did not have that requirement when they came in with the annexation and zoning request.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So question, Rodney, so you're saying this comes back before council, but with this designation, doesn't it just allow planning and zoning to handle it's solely because it's not annexed yet?
That's correct, yeah. All annexations come to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
And just for confirmation, we can designate the zoning.
At
Medium
that
capacity.
time, you can consider what they have proposed. You can't change the zoning that they have requested, but you can consider it at that time. If it's not appropriate, you deny it and you send it back to them for a new application.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, stand for a motion.
And I state this before the motion. I hope when you come to annexation, you have something with 8.5 on it, because you've heard from the council That 4 is not going to cut it, so I'll save you that trip. I move to approve the comprehensive plan map amendment from residential mixed use to medium density residential land use designation for all parcels within the area north of Alma Lane, south of Locust Lane, east of Southside Boulevard, and west of Happy Valley Road, excluding the area in the northwest corner, which is Zone BC Community Business, and the low-density residential area designated for the existing county subdivision, approximately 266.6 acres, for Trilogy Development, representing Endurance Holdings LLC, CMA-00060-2024. with all conditions listed in the staff report, and to adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Pingula?
Yes.
Hills? Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
The one thing that I think I've heard this evening, and I would just ask you to take back, and that is, I think you heard in advance to make sure that the zoning stays contiguous with that zoning. So I might as well not waste your time, because it's going to cost a lot to come back with the wrong one. So,
I'll throw in there, Mayor, too, that's not us making a decision in advance to hearing your presentation.
I know, I just pressed it.
It's recommending continuous building in that area similar to its surrounding areas.
Yeah. With that, I would stand for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Okay, so